In the void, there was a space fragment, speeding like a flying shuttle. And inside it was a mansion, filled with a terrifying presence. A venerable in a white coat held a scalpel, precisely cutting into a body in front of him. "Hey, hey, hey! Don't move, I'm working on your head." There was a body in front of the venerable, struggling madly, but its head had already been placed aside, and it was open with reds and whites all inside. Most terrifyingly, the eyes in the head were staring in horror as the venerable picked and chose inside its head. "Don't be scared. I'm just keen on exploring life, not harming it. I'll put your head back." This head seemed somewhat soothed by these words, but the next moment its eyes widened in shock, because the scalpel suddenly plunged into its brain. "Sorry," said the venerable. "I might have applied a bit too much strength." He watched as the life in the eyes of the head gradually faded, then calmly threw the head away. The head flew like a cannonball, landing far away on a massive mountain. "Annoying, annoying," the venerable sighed lightly, looking at the blood on his hands. "Too much strength makes it hard to control delicate operations. What a nuisance." The venerable raised his hand and burst forth with terrifying Sequence 6 power. The entire space shuttle radiated astonishing fluctuations, his strength multiple levels above an ordinary Sequence 6. Moreover, the power he just released carried a terrifying, bizarre aura. A dark, dim light was emitting from a pattern on his back. A terrible apparition appeared behind him. If one looked closely, they would see that the apparition was sheep-head. Although motionless, it emitted a terrifying coercion. "What are you doing?" A figure, treading on ripples, slowly appeared and coldly said, "Reign in this power now. As a venerable, don't you know you shouldn't use the Lord's power recklessly?" The venerable showed no surprise at their arrival, just slowly smiling. "Very well, my Lord Apostle." The sheep-head apparition slowly retracted, and everything once again became calm. "However, next time remember not to speak to me in a commanding tone," the venerable said softly. "I don't particularly like it." The expression on the apostle's face darkened slightly. This guy, he was one of the venerable's chosen, possessing the evil god master's power. Among those in his responsibility, this one in front of him was undoubtedly the strongest, wielding the most evil god power. The venerable plan. It involved leaving a totem of the evil god master's power on each selected person, growing more powerful as the totem grew. This was Lord Evil God's first step towards descending into this world. I must remind you, the matter in the extremely evil world is important. Besides you, other venerables who have the master's totem will also arrive, not to mention the numerous high-ranking officials from the church and forces dormant in the ancient world fragments. This is the beginning of an era, but it is also a declaration to the whole present world. We from the abyss have truly returned. The venerable said indifferently, "I naturally know what to do, and if you could help me find a few more interesting worlds, I've run out of materials." The apostle looked at the broken bodies all over the mansion ground, not frowning but just sneering coldly. "Slaughtering over a dozen worlds, using some of their most powerful people as your playthings. Quite the distasteful hobby." The venerable frowned, appearing somewhat indifferent as he looked at the apostle. "This is the study of life? What do you know?" They all offered their worth. His scalpel gleamed coldly. "And I do recall each person's life power and their sequence, and the various miraculous changes they brought." The venerable narrowed his eyes slightly. "It's truly wonderful." The apostle shook his head, knowing that being chosen as a venerable meant being a top-tier genius, but geniuses always have their quirks. If Su Chi were here, he would certainly describe it, the apostle, like an agent, with these venerables all participating in something like a Create 101, bound to debut sooner or later. And he, being the infiltrated venerable trainee, he might just win the championship. "Let's talk business," said the apostle softly. "You'll be received by top forces upon arrival, given a high-ranking hidden identity. But until the Dark Zone plan starts, don't expose yourself unnecessarily to avoid complications. Currently, the atmosphere in the present world is still cordial, with numerous top forces still coexisting in a complex manner. But with the start of this event, the camps of the present world and the Abyss will be delineated, the Abyss Church will visit once again, and those forces that join them will also become part of the Abyss power. That will be the time to completely break off, entering full confrontation. Additionally, the apostle paused, adding, "The priest will call a meeting of all venerables from the extremely evil world once you have all arrived." Priest! The venerable narrowed his eyes slightly. Daring as he was, he might disregard the apostle, but the priest's status stood at the pinnacle. He dared not offend. "I understand." Good. The apostle prepared to leave. He still had to contact other venerables from the extremely evil world. Of course, that would be done online. His personal visit this time was truly because this guy was too arrogant, ignoring all his contacts, and crucially, this guy was very important, having control over the evil Godmaster's power. So he came in person. And, thinking of this, the angel envoy couldn't help but curse inwardly. Damn it. Not just him, but every single one of the venerables had various bad habits, and he, being responsible for a group of venerables, was extremely exasperated. And there was also someone who, to this day, had not once returned a call, although interference from other matters could be understood, occasionally causing a missed connection. To miss them all? Wasn't that too much? And the angel envoy also sensed something wrong. Had he not felt the flow of the totem's strength, indicating the other party was still alive, he would have probably gone to confirm in person immediately. This time, I must contact again. If there's a problem. The angel envoy's eyes turned cold, and a terrifying aura burst forth from him. He also possessed great strength, and besides coaxing each venerable like a father, when any venerable disobeyed or betrayed the church, he would personally intervene to rectify, unless, of course, their strength had already surpassed his, in which case he would stay completely temperate, just like the current venerable. Let's go. The angel envoy stepped into the ripples, glancing once more at the massive mountain before leaving. That was no huge mountain range. It was merely a massive pile of heads. The venerable watched the ripples vanish, his scalpel slowly fading into an ethereal shadow. This was not any weapon or tool. It was his sequence. Additionally, he gently touched the totem tattoo on his back, the rough texture harboring the powerful and frightening strength of the evil Godmaster. I certainly don't want to be just a runner-up in the venerable plan. He slowly raised a wicked smile. Among the many venerables, only one could become the true carrier for the evil god's descent, the power all venerables sought after, their supreme glory. Even more importantly, once graced by the evil Godmaster's descent, he was bound to become his bishop. The past 7 archbishops, each and every one of them a terrifying, extraordinary, well-acknowledged entity. Of course, his vision too was exceptionally high. After all, anyone could deduce with their toes. To become a venerable, to be favored by the evil god, one had to be a genius among geniuses, and those who were geniuses by heritage were rare, typically with various backgrounds, bloodlines, race, and other innate gifts. Some were previously divine sons, descendants of the divine race, characters who emerged from extreme territories to be chosen as venerables. Some pursued mighty strength, some saw the situation clearly, some genuinely believed in the evil god. Of course, each of them also possessed great ambition. And he was also a person with an extraordinary background, his ambition even greater than others. He wanted not only to become a bishop but a divine. "I will gradually take it into my possession," the venerable murmured gently. He was also making extensive preparations. Just a pity. The superpower world he had eyed was ruined by that damn rat, messing up his plans. But, no matter, the venerable sneered, his aura surging forth like a tumultuous torrent, the surrounding sand and blood stirring into fierce ripples. His eyes gleamed with a murderous light akin to stardust. Behind him, a large number of various monsters stitched together crawled out from the earth, each with a terrifying aura and ferocious visage. "Master! Master, master! He he he!" There were also head bats flying in the sky dome, cackling. "Damn it! Why did I summon these noisy creatures? The Venerable pointed a finger and pierced through one. The head bat hit the ground but possessed extraordinary life force, absorbing the surrounding flesh and blood to rejuvenate itself. In any case, the Venerable gently took off his white gloves. That world already has my coordinates laid down. It can't escape. And furthermore, Venerable watched as someone sent a message from the distant lands. The font was indeed meek, displaying a humble tone. Respected Lord Venerable, regarding the trade you mentioned earlier, we are willing to offer this world as goods. He gently said, there are still many things to be done in the extremely evil world this time. Su Chi was recovering his spiritual energy, and having understood the situation of this world, he realized Heavenly Mountain was key. However, his spiritual energy had only recovered to a few thousand, totally insufficient. The thing they call spirit stones is extremely scarce, all monopolized by Heavenly Mountain. It seems only from there can I regain my full strength. However, Su Chi wasn't in a hurry, since he knew this world was connected to the extremely evil world and could gather from the masses that the extremely evil world was currently in preparation for a grand meeting. The dark zone was completely riotous and unapproachable. Thus, he could thoroughly explore the secrets of this world. After all outsiders disappear due to being tainted by something ominous? So far, Su Chi hadn't noticed anything amiss and had some speculations. Could be interference from the world's rules or attraction by ominous items. And Su Chi had a premonition that the ominous might be related to that world at the dueling ground. If encountered, it might answer the doubts in his heart. But of course, it could also lead to extraordinary dangers. Brother Su, it's time to eat. These so-called sinful cultivators weren't numerous, totaling only a few thousand people, and among them, less than 50 could be called 7th rank strength. Okay. Coming. Su Chi stood up and headed towards the crowd. After half a day's interaction, Su Chi had also become acquainted with many people, although not intimately. They just nodded and greeted each other. Many people looked at him with curiosity, naturally from the outer world, frequently asking him many questions. The other half looked at him with sympathy, as they were all aware of the inevitable fate of every outsider. Speaking of which, your magic formulas look very mystical. Su Chi sat next to Tang Dashin. Can you let me learn it? After all, I really want to progress. Unlike superpowers, these magic formulas were universal. Anyone could control them, releasing spiritual energy from within their body in the form of magic formulas. Tang Dashin shook his head with a wry smile. It seems every outsider says this, but I advise you to give up on this idea. I don't know why, but you and we seem different, unable to use the magic formulas. Su Chi paused, murmuring to himself, it seems to be a problem of sequence. Different sequences naturally had barriers between them, just like how he himself couldn't utilize the mechanical army traits. Of course, like Old Wong and others who integrated into mechanical assemblies, they had stepped into the mechanical sequence and could use its strength and energy stones. However, no worries, I'll give it a try. Maybe I'm a special recruit for physical education. Tang Dashin knew persuasion was futile, thinking trying it out meant giving up soon. Watch carefully. He pinched the magic formula in his hand. The magic formula is not just about fingers, but also aligning with the chi gates, then exciting energy from within them. But honestly, even if I explain every step clearly, entering the gateway is very difficult. Our people take at least several hours just to learn the lowest level magic formula. He swiftly pinched the magic formula, continuously transforming it and maintaining correspondence with the chi gates and flow of chi. This is a complete action. Next, I will demonstrate step by step, repeating several times. No need. Su Chi paused, pinching his hands together, and replicated it in a few moments. It doesn't seem that hard. Tang Dashin. He even checked Su Chi's chi gates, where various flows of chi were circulating, connected. Damn, that was fast. You really are a genius, aren't you? You activate your spiritual power. Tang Dashin was somewhat surprised and speculative, but then he had a thought. You must call it spiritual energy, right? Give it a try and see. Su Chi faintly activated his spiritual energy. Spiritual energy emerged from the Chi Gate and connected to his fingertips, but the magic formulas showed no change whatsoever. Indeed, it still doesn't work, Tang Dashan sighed. You can't use our magic formulas. Su Chi's gaze shifted slightly. Is that so? He indeed felt a mysterious strength within the magic formulas, but it was as if there was a strong barrier. It's a bit strange, it feels the same as when I was in the mechanical world. And at that moment, Su Chi's spiritual eyes suddenly flickered as if sensing some danger, and a piercing pain arose. At the same time, a chill quietly crept into Su Chi's heart. He slightly raised his eyes to look around, and his pupils changed. What's wrong? Is there any sign when outsiders encounter something ominous? Su Chi asked softly. Tang Dashan was startled. This? He pondered. Since there are so few heavenly descendants, I'm not sure if there is one. Tang Dashan hesitated for a moment. A brother once said something to me. I don't know if it's related to something ominous or just a coincidence. He said. He heard the sound of ticking, but it seemed to be just an auditory hallucination. I understand. Tang Dashan looked at Su Chi with concern. Brother Su, could it be that you've sensed something? Su Chi did not answer but merely raised his arm gently, reaching out his hand to catch something and slowly said, Is it going to rain? Tang Dashan was taken aback and looked at the sun in the sky dome. How could that be? Water droplets fell onto Su Chi's palm. The water was tainted with pollution, murky as if contaminated. And the sky dome, Su Chi saw a thick layer of black clouds gathering overhead. Then, it seems I was wrong about the weather forecast, Su Chi muttered to himself. Good. If you detect anything wrong, tell us. Tang Dashan wasn't suspicious. He wanted to help the outsiders as much as possible. After all, they also wanted to learn about the outside world. After the meal, the cultivators began their own tasks, some studying and practicing magic formulas, some holding a few shattered spirit stones and cultivating. As for Su Chi, he was just strolling around, all the while slowly recovering his spiritual energy with spirit coins. Is this the ominous? Su Chi extended his palm again, catching another water droplet from the sky, his gaze fixed on the sky dome. The dark clouds continued to amass, dense as ink, and without close observation, it looked as though a perfectly black hole had been carved out of the sky dome. Observing everyone else, it was evident that none could see the scene in his line of sight. Everyone was consumed with their own affairs, oblivious to the fact that the sun above had been obscured by dark clouds. And moreover, Su Chi spread his palm open, gazing at the droplet in his hand. This feeling of déjà vu is becoming stronger and stronger. Black clouds, black rain. It was completely identical to that moment at the dueling ground. By now, he could almost be certain that the two were definitely related. So directly deducing backwards is also an option. Su Chi narrowed his eyes. At the dueling ground, the essence of the black rain was from the old days, but its power wasn't as unstoppable as the true old days. However, it would slowly erase existence. He looked up, and I also know where those outsiders went. They didn't encounter anything ominous. They were simply erased from existence. The only difference is, I can see it. The spiritual eyes could see through all illusions, and even the old days could not hide. At this moment, black clouds continued to gather, but it had not yet started raining, only the occasional drop of black water falling from the sky, seemingly unaffected by the surrounding wind. One drop at a time, it seems to have no significant effect yet, but once the black downpour begins in full force, that would be troubling. Su Chi paused, having witnessed the terrifying power of the black rain, which even the black-haired youth from ancient paradise found extremely difficult. It was certainly no small matter. And what's more important, what was the connection between these two worlds, and did that world have any relation to this one? Could there be any involvement with the black rain of the old days? After about half a day had passed, the sun in the sky dome was still hanging high. This world had long days, 5 times longer than those of other worlds, and the nights were just as long. Even now, it was only approaching noontime. By this point, Su Chi had also more or less gathered various pieces of information about this world, which seemed to be in a declining period of law. The cultivators here also faced extremely difficult thresholds, and out of tens of millions of people in this world, perhaps only 1 in 10,000 could barely embark on the path of cultivation. And after the Immortal Master took control of Heavenly Mountain, he also hoarded some of the depleted resources and relentlessly pursued and exterminated the sinful cultivators not belonging to Heavenly Mountain, making their lives even more difficult. I always feel, Su Chi murmured to himself, it's not just a bit similar to the plot of Old Wong and their mechanical world. It's exactly the same. Same situation, equally scarce resources, and a powerful enemy overhead. If it were matched in Paradise, I'd suspect that Paradise couldn't be bothered to come up with new ideas, and just arranged 2 similar instance worlds. If it were the Mixed Fish Piano, I'd think this fellow is starting to churn out filler content. But here, Su Chi watched the cultivators forming their magic formulas, his gaze flickering. From various pieces of information, he finally saw a fragmentary message. The shattered Xuanwu dimension, the remaining immortal God path sequence. New dimension. Previously, he had said the present world was like a large swimming pool, and other dimensions were like different balloons placed in a tank, rarely contacting or transmitting information to the present world. Although he had just made contact, Su Chi had not expected to encounter another one. Su Chi was still thinking. At that moment, ripples suddenly appeared in front of the broken temple, and a man in black, covered in blood, stumbled and rolled into the temple. Su Chi looked at the man, who was covered in astonishing wounds and was gasping for breath, with eyes full of blood vessels as he collapsed in front of him. Struggling, he lifted his gaze to look at Su Chi. Quick! 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 Hurry and notify everyone. The man spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Heavenly Mountain. All members mobilize. To exterminate demons as per orders and slaughter. Human City. Su Chi said, Got it. Thank. His eyes flickered slightly because as soon as the man had relayed the information, he seemed to have completed his mission, losing all his strength, his life force gradually fading. After all, the severity of his injuries had exposed his bones and internal organs, and he was hanging by a thread when he arrived here to deliver this message. At this moment, he had released that last breath and slowly went silent. Su Chi looked at the scene and muttered to himself, I haven't tried this thing before, but now it's being used on you. He reached out his hand, holding a small bottle of a potion, with a label on it that read Starfire Deficient Healing Potion. This was a derivative created by Xiao Meng researching potentiated Starfire potions, which could use the chaotic powerful restoration traits to heal severe injuries. Of course, since it's not a priority right now, no trials have been done yet. Congratulations, you're the first user. Su Chi sprinkled the Starfire healing potion over the man's body, and the Starfire fell along with it. In the next moment, a multitude of starlight spots enveloped the man in black, the starlight slowly healing his injuries and stabilizing his vital signs. Effectiveness is not too bad. Did you record that? Xiao Meng offline version said, Master, it's recorded. And now, many people had also noticed this scene, their eyes widening as they hurried over. 5 minutes later, a pharmacist was now treating the man in black in his house. Upon confirming the man was still alive, albeit not yet awake, Tang Dashan solemnly entrusted the pharmacist to take good care of him, then pushed open the door and walked out. Before leaving, he still heard some muttering surprised comments from the old pharmacist. The meridians are severed. The qi is leaking, but it's slowly repairing. This is simply miraculous. After Tang Dashan pushed open the door, the courtyard outside the house was already filled with people. All the cultivators had angry expressions, simmering with unvented rage. Gentlemen, Tang Dashan looked around at everyone. I understand everyone's anger. Heavenly Mountain, releasing demons, using it as a token, then slaughtering Human City. Such an act is inhuman and should be condemned by both heaven and earth. And now we are also calling all our cultivators who are out there. Though we may be insignificant, we won't stand by. Tang Dashan said in a deep voice. We will stop them. And based on the information from our cultivators hidden in various places, news has already arrived. They are heading towards the north to Ethereal Spirit City, and those so-called demons are also gathering towards the north. Animals. Tang Dashan's eyes blazed with anger. Gentlemen, activate the array. We must hurry over immediately. It must be said. Their situation was much better than that of the mechanical world's Shandian and his group. Their cultivators were also not weak, plus they had clear organization and other cultivators dispersed outside. Moreover, many people were adeptly setting up the array, manipulating various profound magic formulas. Do you have a chance against Heavenly Mountain? Asked Su Qi softly. There is one. The previous youth clenched his fists tightly. His name was Su Lin. We have never ceased cultivating, always accumulating strength. How many levels? 1 level. Su Lin's momentum weakened slightly. Su Qi was somewhat surprised. It's so high. Isn't this a guaranteed win? Su Lin. I was just overcome with passion, making an indignant remark. That was a bit too much to say. But what Su Qi said was the truth. A single layer of probability was already frightfully high. If you don't believe it, just think about the mechanical world, where big data analysis produced a probability of less than 0.1%. Brother Su. Tang Dashan patted Su Qi's shoulder. Don't underestimate us. After Heavenly Mountain was controlled by the Immortal Master, although all the resisting Heavenly Mountain disciples and elders were slaughtered, there were still powerful predecessors who survived and established this place. And we people were able to possess our current strength, all because of the Heavenly Mountain's hidden scriptures and secret books brought out by these old predecessors. Su Qi. Where are they then? When he entered here, he had only seen young faces, at most middle-aged men like Tang Dashan. He hadn't seen any so-called old predecessors. They. A trace of sorrow appeared on Tang Dashan's face, which then turned steadfast. He said solemnly, They will come back. You keep talking to me in riddles. Anyway, Tang Dashan watched as the array was nearly completely constructed, and everyone pinched their magic formulas together to provide it with power. Now, we should head out. Su Qi looked at the array. It had similarities to a ritual but also many differences. Brother Su. Tang Dashan looked at Su Qi. This is our do-or-die battle with Heavenly Mountain. Plus, your strength hasn't recovered, so please guard this place. He did not let Su Qi go. All right. Su Qi didn't refuse. Good luck. And also, he waved his hand. A mountain of starfire healing potions appeared. Take these with you. Everyone stepped in and was directly teleported away. Xiaomeng's offline version had already left nano data in various starfire potions to monitor usage as long as they were in any world. And these potions that could quickly heal physical injuries were a great enhancement for them. All right. Su Qi looked towards the current gathering of cultivators. Besides a few elderly pharmacists taking care of a man in black clothes, there were hardly any people left. He kicked open the door of the room. The old pharmacists lifted their heads in astonishment. Young man, what are you doing? Good question. I'm here to wake people up. Su Qi strode towards the still unconscious man in black, and under the shocked gaze of the old pharmacists, he picked him up and slapped him several times. What are you doing? He's still an injured person. Do you want to kill him? Su Qi calmly said. Don't worry. Those slaps had no strength. Look, his face isn't even red. And, well, he's about to wake up. After the battle with the blood-killing bishop, Su Qi had gained better control over his spiritual power. Just now, the slaps carried no force but did have a spiritual impact. And the next moment, the man in black grimaced, slowly opened his eyes, and murmured, Did I die? In hell? I remember someone whose face I couldn't see just came up and slapped me. Congratulations. It's likely that those slaps woke you up. Su Qi said with a light smile. What is your name? I am called Qin Hao. The man in black was a bit dazed but responded subconsciously. All right, Qin Hao. The message you brought back has already motivated everyone to start gathering all forces to confront Heavenly Mountain head-on. Upon hearing this, Qin Hao regained a bit of awareness. His expression changed, and he bit his lip, trying to get up. I have to go too. The old pharmacists were about to persuade him. But Su Qi placed his hand on his shoulder, smiling slightly. No, you have something more important to do. What? You know where the main base of Heavenly Mountain is, don't you? Oh. Qin Hao looked up, bewildered, at Su Qi. I know, but what do you mean by asking this? Su Qi explained persuasively. Here's the thing, while you were unconscious, they also made extensive preparations. Now, the task left for us is to create a distraction and launch a surprise attack on their main base from the rear. Although Qin Hao had just woken up and was somewhat confused, his mind had already cleared. He frowned. How could such a strategy be possible? Heavenly Mountain is protected by a powerful array, which is their safety net, and there must be some people guarding it. We too couldn't possibly stand a chance if we go inside. That's not right. Suddenly, Qin Hao looked up, slightly dazed. I think I saw you before I passed out. But he looked at Su Qi's clothes and face. Who are you? A heavenly descendant? It doesn't matter. Which direction is Heavenly Mountain? North, Qin Hao said instinctively. Wait, you don't seriously want to go, do you? Because this is the only way you can save your companions. Su Qi calmly said. The others are already en route to confront Heavenly Mountain, but they estimate their chances of winning are less than 10%, and I've offered them a bit of help. Under normal circumstances, they can hold on for a maximum of 2 hours in a direct encounter. So if you really want them to survive, you'll have to trust me. Su Qi gently continued. We simply steal their crystal. His current level of spiritual energy wasn't much, enough to burst forth in a direct confrontation, but it wasn't necessary. Now was the perfect moment for a stealthy approach. Their so-called spirit stones, which I've tried myself, can replenish one's own spiritual energy quite rapidly. However, in this cultivator gathering place, they are a rare resource as all others are inside Heavenly Mountain. Do you think there is a way to break their array? Qin Hao asked seriously, considering the feasibility of Su Qi's plan. If they couldn't resist on the front lines, sneaking into the enemy's main base indeed was a good way to set their rear bases ablaze. It would also greatly assist the front lines, possibly increasing the survival chances of many companions. However, the issue now was whether they could penetrate the sanctuary's main array at Heavenly Mountain, and whether the two of them could spark this fire. That aspect, don't worry. Su Qi was relaxed. We'll see when the time comes. Qin Hao's eyes widened. Damn it! Are you going to tell me if you're confident? I'm confident. Qin Hao felt a pang of internal injury emanating from his chest. Stay calm. Su Qi said, it's just like taking an exam. Solving problems requires seeing the questions first before you can write the answers. I, Su Buxian, a rather unknown sect hierarch, am best at on-the-spot thinking. And now, however, Su Qi snapped his fingers. Also, Qin, it's time to hit the road. This time, Starfire did not group together like in the mecha world. Instead, it formed unique patterns of starfire on the ground around his feet, twinkling with each step. Not to mention, this thing was quite useful for showing off. He grabbed Qin Hao. Qin Hao was stunned, utterly unable to resist, as if clamped down by a pair of pliers. As several old pharmacists watched with widened eyes, Su Qi stepped forth and instantly disappeared from the spot, stepping into a transmission array, and only a path of starfire-lit lotuses remained on the ground along his way. The old pharmacist muttered, such quick speed. Additionally, how did this heavenly descendant who descended know how to use our array? This transmission array was similar to Ripple's but was more stable and safe. The next moment, Su Qi and Qin Hao appeared in a vast plain. Su Chi flipped a spirit coin in his hand. Your constructed array has the 8 trigrams orientations, and one of these corresponds to the north. If you want to go anywhere, you can teleport individually. The magic formulas of your world's transmission arrays are indeed convenient. You wouldn't understand, after all. This is the wisdom of our ancestors. Qin Hao took a deep breath, having arrived here, although somewhat reluctantly. He wanted to grasp any sliver of hope. He looked into the distance. Aren't you looking for Heavenly Mountain? It's in the north, and although we've reached here, we still need to cross several mountains and cities. Qin Hao had mostly recovered from his injuries, but his face was still a bit pale. At this moment, he formed a spell with his fingers. I've enhanced you with the wind-walking technique, which will greatly increase your speed as you ride the winds, though it doesn't allow for flying. Su Chi felt the wind stirring around him and had Xiao Meng offline record it. Wow! No matter how many times I see it, the ability of this magic formula is indeed quite powerful. When Bai Yilin had used magic, Su Chi had not paid much attention, as it was just a display of traits from the spiritual ability sequence. But now, after grasping the concept of dimensions, Su Chi discovered that the abilities of each dimension possessed bug-level traits. The mecha's powerful recovery, versatile assembly, and changeability. Immortal Taoist formulas also controlled various elements and were easy to use, offering a variety of techniques, and had general applicability. Most importantly, the strength of cultivators far exceeds that of other ordinary beings in the present world. Su Chi was very interested. Moreover, if he could master the power of these magic formulas, perhaps he could pair them with Starfire, considering light is also an element. Of course, to achieve this, I'm afraid I must reach the 7th rank and fill the gap in the ancient relics with an Immortal Tao ancient relic. Before this, Su Chi had also considered the mechanical sequence, but the thought of his body becoming mechanical parts made him dismiss the idea. Moreover, the Hustler's #1 machine could fully integrate with him, so there was no need for such transformation. The two were swiftly rushing, and, with the enhancement of the wind spell, they glided through the air, leaping a kilometer with every step they took. And ahead, they could see the outline of an ancient city. That's Tianfang City. It seems we're getting close to Heavenly Mountain. This is one of the most bustling cities, with traders from all over. Heavenly Mountain has absolute control here, and many of the affiliated families are their dogs. After all, we are near Heavenly Mountain. There won't be any attacks by demons. We need to be careful not to get probed. Otherwise, these people will send an early warning to Heavenly Mountain, and we might spook them. Is that so? Su Chi looked at the city. But I don't think that's necessary because no one will be able to send any messages out. Qin Hao was stunned. All at once his pupils contracted. A tingling sensation raced over his scalp as he saw corpses fleeing all around the city outskirts, most torn apart by demons, their flesh devoured. Long rivers of blood flowed along the irregular ground, gathering into a blood pond. The bloody scene caused him to tremble, not out of fear, but with gritted teeth. What happened here? Was it an attack on the city by demons? The whole Tianfang city has been obliterated, Su Chi said lightly. Although I don't know much about Heavenly Mountain, it now seems like they are in the mood for a harvest. Outside the city, more than a dozen demons were still gnawing on corpses. Noticing Su Chi and Qin Hao, their blood-red eyes radiated a shocking blood light. Then, without any hesitation, they lunged towards them. These are dangerous demons. Qin Hao bellowed, Brother Su, fall back. I'll block them. He formed the magic formulas with his hands and pressed them to the ground. The next moment, a large area of the ground crumbled. Several demons lost their footing, collapsed into the void, and were enveloped as the ground reformed around them. Despite Qin Hao's previous injuries, his strength was indeed that of a golden core, equivalent to the 7th rank. Su Chi didn't take action. His spiritual energy recovery was slow, and he rationed every bit of it. Such demons didn't require his intervention. And moreover, Su Chi squinted his eyes, looking at those demons. These creatures, why do they seem so familiar? Several daggers danced from Qin Hao's cuffs. Ice-cold light burst forth toward the demons to slay them. After killing them off, he let out a light breath. Brother Su, you might not have seen these demons before. They're maniacal, strange, fond of slaughter, and moreover, Qin Hao looked gravely at the demon corpses. Many of them are transformed from ordinary spiritual beasts, even ordinary people. Indeed, after transforming, they brought with them a fearsome and strange spiritual pollution. Because, aren't these the very pollution monsters? Pollution monsters are common in the present world. But their presence here made it necessary for Su Qi to probe the composition of that so-called immortal master. Let's go. They chose not to enter the city. Its bloody stench was so thick it nearly reached the heavens, and inside there were stifled roars of various kinds. Inside, it had already turned into a paradise for polluted demons, and there was no need to waste time there. After quickly dealing with over a dozen polluted demons that had ambushed them, they approached what was called Heavenly Mountain. Heavenly Mountain, Heavenly Mountain. It turns out it really is on Heavenly Mountain. Su Qi looked up at the grand mountain range in the sky, glowing with resplendent light. And now, seeing this massive array, do you still have the confidence to go in? Qin Hao said gravely. The array wrapped around the entire floating heavenly mountain in a cylindrical form, extending vertically to the ground. One could see the flow of various array patterns, inscribed with lots of arcane and difficult ancient characters. I'm even more confident now, my friend. Su Qi saw things of ancient origin on the array, similar to the essences swallowed by the black rain in the dueling ground. He was almost certain that this world indeed originated from the immortal path dimension, a dimension that was probably glorious beyond measure. However, that surely wouldn't stop him. Su Qi walked towards the array's light screen. You, be careful. This is an attack and kill array. Once you enter, you'll be torn to shreds. Qin Hao suddenly widened his eyes, because Su Qi had just walked straight in, without any hindrance. You? Qin Hao muttered. You just waltzed in there? Su Qi raised an eyebrow, and after entering the light screen, he felt a force tugging upward, seeming to be able to send a person directly to Heavenly Mountain. However, he didn't move, since he was still within the holy light corridor. Jiang Ji stood dumbfounded as he watched Su Qi walk back out. I won't ask how you got in, but I want to know why you came out after you finally got in. Su Qi glanced at him. Where did you get the idea that it was hard for me? Qin Hao covered his face. Many of our predecessors damn well researched for over 30 years and haven't found a way to break this array. Yet you just, I can't accept this. Su Qi's words struck him, suggesting meaningfully, this is the power of the hustlers. Also, don't resist. I'm going to take you in with me. Qin Hao was stunned. I can go too? I don't know, I haven't tried. Su Qi was telling the truth. He had never used Holy Light Corridor to take someone with him before, but he was sure this strength could be exerted on another person under his control. You want me to go in without trying? Qin Hao's eyes widened. You know that one touch of this array could grind me to dust. No worries, just grit your teeth through it. Qin Hao was almost at his limit, but be human, please. However, he still started moving. All right then, let's go. Because he really saw Su Qi go in and come back out. He also realized that they might actually be able to achieve something great. How could he possibly shrink back? After a strange strength descended upon Qin Hao, he gritted his teeth and walked towards the array with Su Qi. Boom! The terrifying energy fluctuations of heaven and earth didn't harm Qin Hao at all. And just like that, he and Su Qi stepped in. Qin Hao looked at his unharmed self, and his trembling heart finally settled down. Somewhat shocked, he looked at Su Qi. How on earth did you do that? This is the strength of the Hustlers sect, Su Qi said with a mysterious smile. Then, after lifting the holy light corridor, the strange array strength enveloped them. The next moment, they were lifted into the air, drawn by the strength in the direction of Heavenly Mountain. By the way, I need to remind you of a trivial little thing, Su Qi spoke softly. What? The people left on Heavenly Mountain have already spotted us. This is not some trivial bullshit. Qin Hao was somewhat panicked, but he had to accept it, gritting his teeth. I indeed overlooked this. It's an array under their control. Breaking in will surely draw attention. Qin Hao spoke with a heavy voice. So what do we do now? Simple, just kill our way through, they have very few people. Qin Hao, listening to Su Qi's leisurely tone, relaxed slightly. Is that so? It seems the people of Heavenly Mountain are too confident, only leaving a few people to guard. Yes, Su Qi agreed, as they also ascended above Heavenly Mountain. A dense crowd of Heavenly Mountain disciples was watching them with indifferent, mocking eyes, their blades and light swords reflecting glaring cold light. Su Qi, just over 100 people. Qin Hao's eyes bulged. He stood dumbstruck at the sight of the formation of the 100+ people, his pupils filled with shock. This damn well counts as few people. You damn. Right now, immediately. Let me out. Don't force me to kneel down and beg you. Death is not to be feared. Qin Hao was ready for the battle that could lead to his death. But damn it, not an utterly meaningless death. Dying here was worse than dying on the front line. Stay calm. I've scanned it once. There are only about 10 golden cores. The rest are all foundation establishments or qi cultivations. In other words, 10 7th ranks, mostly even 9th ranks. After reaching the 7th rank, there would be many new changes. Spiritual energy seems to be able to restore itself autonomously. What do you mean by only about? Qin Hao was on the verge of tears. I'm only at the golden core stage 2, asshole. Heh. Su Qi laughed contemptuously. Aren't I here with you? Could it be? Qin Hao suddenly shivered. You're at the nascent soul stage? Although the probability was nearly impossible, he couldn't help but think so. Because from all the magical maneuvers Su Qi performed along the way, he could feel the other's power was strange, though previously, every heavenly descendant was at most golden core stage in strength, but it might have been a prejudice. If we go by the strength sequence of your world, said Su Qi as he waved his hand and his spiritual energy aura spread out. Qin Hao subsequently widened his eyes. It couldn't be, Su Qi said gently. I should be at the foundation establishment stage. Qin Hao. He trembled as he reached to cover his chest, almost overcome by a surge of blood. Damn the foundation establishment. He should have realized it sooner. The aura of this power was foundation establishment. But this guy's inexplicable confidence had actually given him a glimmer of hope. He really deserved to die. The clang of cold light against metal pulled him back from despair. Looking at the indifferent and mocking gazes of the crowd, he felt even more desolate. Now it was their turn to die. The leading Heavenly Mountain disciple with fluttering sleeves and a red ribbon in his hair squinted and chuckled. I thought the sinful cultivators were making a last-ditch assault on Heavenly Mountain, but unexpectedly, he stretched out his long fingernails. A golden core and a foundation establishment come to challenge the authority of Heavenly Mountain. Moreover, I'm quite curious how you two little mice got in. Qin Hao, I freaking want to know too. However, the young man in white didn't ask. He just slightly curled up a cruel, cold smirk. Once we soul search you two, we'll know everything. Take them down. Yes. The other Heavenly Mountain disciples' eyes held a bit of murderous intent and fierceness. Their magic formulas now carried a strong offensive aura, bursting forth in power. Damn it! Qin Hao's eyes also reddened. No matter what, he and these beasts had irreconcilable hatred. Even now in a desperate situation, taking down just one would be worth it. Brother Su, let's fight them with everything we've got. Su Qi looked at Qin Hao, who was filled with a resolve to die, and roared aloud, charging into battle with all his might. These kids, always so impulsive. He flipped a spirit coin in his hand, calmly throwing it upward. He took out a silver revolver from his pocket with a graceful arc, carrying the faint scent of gunpowder, and it transformed continuously in his hand. The Desert Eagle currently has 3 forms. The ordinary form, the sniper god form which he used to kill a venerable's projection before. And now, this was its third form. Meteor. Can absorb all surrounding particles and transform them into bullets. The upper limit is related to the user's strength. He could call upon the Black Shadow Core directly, but his spiritual energy was insufficient at the moment. Summoning one Black Shadow for each minute required consuming 10 points of spiritual energy. Before, he could ignore this consumption, but now, naturally, he would save where he could. After all, his current spiritual energy was just under 10,000. To tell the truth, if we're talking about strength, it's pretty much on par with Foundation Establishment. I didn't lie after all. Endless Sand Eagle. Meteor form assembled successfully. The next moment, what appeared in Suchi's hands was now a weapon with a massive energy core in the center and a gun barrel like a deep abyss mouth, patterned in black and red stripes, at least 2 meters long and immensely large. Even in an anime, it would be considered exaggerated. Suchi rested his hand on it, easily wielding it. After all, he was the true owner. Such a weapon's appearance instantly grabbed everyone's attention. Their eyelids twitched, and the white-clothed man's eyes flashed a sliver of light. That thing, although he did not recognize it, had never seen it, but the entrance of the Black Forest bore a deadly aura that was terrifying. And his first reaction was not caution or fear, but a greedy expression. Make a move quickly. I want that thing in my hands. Qin Hao growled as he was already forming magic formulas. Many Heavenly Mountain disciples did the same, the energy in the world changing, transforming, pressing down on Suchi and Qin Hao. And the next moment, the meteor in his hand trembled violently, unleashing a powerful and terrifying gravitational field that spread around. In an instant, all energy-carrying particles within 100 meters around Suchi converged on the meteor, including the magic formulas being manipulated by everyone, the spells being cast. Wind, fire, thunder, lightning. Everything was absorbed into the core of the meteor. Even Qin Hao was stunned. Where did my huge fireball go? He turned his head back. Suchi was holding a fierce cannon that seemed to breathe, swirl with energy. The reactor inside brimming with speckled power. What the hell is this? Qin Hao yelled out in shock. Don't rush. Suchi snapped his fingers. It's not over yet. The next moment, tons of starfire were also filled in. Starfire also has the energy of light, though not very powerful. It played a decorative role, but since it cost nothing, he created at will. Now, Suchi pointed the meteor gun barrel, and a terrifying energy gathered at the muzzle. Everyone, once I fire this shot, I don't even know what will happen. Under the horrified gazes of everyone. Run! But in the next moment, a stream of energy burst forth like an enormous mist spraying violently from a high-pressure water pipe. A terrifying shockwave, 10 times the width of the muzzle, radiating with dazzling starfire light, mixed with various spells, world attributes, and elements of wind, fire, lightning, and thunder. It roared towards the Heavenly Mountain disciples in a burst. Boom! A massive sound carried endless debris and blinding light and lasted for a long while. It continued for 5 breaths before slowly subsiding. And where the Heavenly Mountain disciples had been gathered, only a black tunnel-like hole remained, piercing straight through and striking another mountain. And over 100 Heavenly Mountain disciples had scattered. Of course, it referred to their bodies being scattered, their flesh torn apart. An arm in the northern hills, a thigh in the pond, and their butts on a tree. Qin Hao watched the scene in a daze. What in the world is? This is the Foundation Establishment. Qin Hao roared internally. This is some Foundation Establishment period, my ass. After firing that one shot, Suchi's meteor returned to its ordinary state. The meteor only had one shot, and after firing it would enter a long cooling period. You two damned. At this moment, a few Golden Core and some Foundation Establishment disciples who were not within range were still alive, incredibly disheveled, their clothes tattered, their gazes towards Suchi filled with both terror and rage. I will have your heads. Qin Hao? None of my damn business. But in the next moment, Boom! The array was activated along with them. They had burst forth all their strength, unleashing the array's lethal offensive. Kill! Hundreds of cold, giant blades took form from the invisible, all aimed at Su Qi. Looks like that thing of yours only works once. And now it's your turn to die. The white-clothed senior brother was filled with murderous intent as he roared and thrust his hand downwards. A multitude of giant swords charged unstoppable towards Su Qi. No one can dodge. The sex-killing array. His voice suddenly faltered, his eyes widening in shock as the giant swords passed through Su Qi's body without inflicting even the slightest damage. How can it be? Su Qi walked slowly, the wind-walking technique still augmenting him, covering 10 meters with a single step, approaching them. Kill him! Kill him quickly! They watched Su Qi draw nearer in horror, as all their attacks were completely ineffective, until Su Qi stood in front of one disciple. In fear, the disciple raised his weapon, his hands quivering, a reaction that was meant to be seen in the ordinary people they slaughtered. Yet now it had become their own. You... He just trembled to speak. The dark star transformed into a long knife, swinging directly in a cold, arcing flash. The few golden core stage individuals roared in an attempt at a final resistance, but Su Qi gave them no chance. With minimal spiritual energy consumption, as their opponents' psyches collapsed and they were thrown into chaos, he, like a raven-haired young man slaughtering indiscriminately, easily dispatched most of the remaining few. Only the white-clothed immortal master was left. He kneeled on the ground, staring fearfully at Su Qi before him. This was an enemy they had no way of resisting. How could such a powerful being emerge suddenly from among those sinful cultivators? Clearly just at the foundation establishment stage, yet overpoweringly and effortlessly slain them all. Don't be scared, Su Qi said. I still have a few questions for you, so you still have a chance to live. Qin Hao quickly made his way over. Although he was shocked by Su Qi's rampage, the most important thing at the moment was to assist the team on the front line. However, the white-clad senior brother, worthy of his title, quickly spoke with a trembling voice. The members of Heavenly Mountain have received instructions from the Immortal Master. The Immortal Master said he needs a large number of ordinary people. It was we who deliberately lured the demons there. The information given to you was intentional, to force you all out and trap you in one fell swoop. We've also prepared overwhelming means, using the flesh and blood of a large number of ordinary people to refine a blood array. If you go there, you'll only fall into a trap. And I can also tell you the secret of the array here. Damn. Su Qi's eyelid twitched. A true strategist reveals himself. No wonder you're the senior brother. I didn't even ask. And you're already spilling a series of secrets without reservation. Qin Hao, standing beside him, had his pupils trembling. Hearing about the blood array crafted from the flesh and blood of countless people and the set trap, he clenched his teeth. You beasts! The senior brother ignored him, looking at Su Qi with hope. Brother, do you think that's enough? It's enough, but I still have one question. Su Qi paused. Where's your energy storage warehouse located? Next to the Heavenly Mountain Inner Hall, the white-clad senior brother bluntly revealed. Good. Su Qi nodded with a smile. Your sincere attitude pleases me. The white-clad senior brother asked with hope. So, can I live? Yes, I agree. A look of joy appeared on the senior brother's face. However, whether this guy Qin is satisfied or not, I wouldn't know. Qin Hao reached out his hand to pick him up. Several spells struck him like steel seals, blocking all his meridians and energy points. Brother Su, leave him to me. He still had many questions to ask. Plus, he could use the senior brother's hand to create a chance for the front line to catch their breath. All right then, you two have fun. Su Qi headed straight for their spirit stone storage. The senior brother, with his head down, showed a hint of fierceness in his eyes. Although he blurted out a lot of information, he purposely withheld the most important piece. That was, the Immortal Master was on his way back. Hence, he spilled all the secrets, preserving his own life to buy time. Once the immortal master arrived, they would all die. After all, that ancestor was a powerful being at golden core perfection, on the verge of nascent soul. Not only that, but he also possessed many bizarre means. And as for Su Qi, how could he not know the senior brother's thoughts? However, he didn't care. The most pressing matter was to restore his spiritual energy and break through to the 7th rank. Not because of the so-called immortal master coming back, but because Su Qi stretched out his hand. Droplets of murky black rainwater continually fell on his palm. He slightly raised his head. The sky was filled with rumbling black rain clouds, seemingly ready to pour at any moment. This thing was approaching fast and could burst at any time. He must recover quickly and break through to the 7th rank. Su Qi soon arrived at the heavenly mountain inner hall and saw a treasure vault sealed and protected by an array. Of course, this wouldn't stop Su Qi. He entered right through all barriers. Inside, the mountain was hollowed out, possessing a vast space, and the quantity of spirit stones was naturally staggering. An entire spirit stone vein placed inside, with energy like a mist in the air. Upon entering, all 3 of Su Qi's sequence paths began to absorb the surrounding energy with full force. His spiritual energy was recovering at 10 times the previous rate. Still not enough. Su Qi headed straight for the spirit stone vein, where the contained energy was evidently connected to the present world, different from the mechanical world, likely because both the cultivators here and the living beings of the present world were flesh and blood humans. Upon touching the spirit stone vein, Su Qi immediately felt his spiritual energy rapidly recovering. The present world wasn't without things that could restore spiritual energy, generally used in combat to briefly and quickly recover some spiritual energy, but it could also cause some damage. Spirit coins, on the other hand, were mostly used for cultivation, to increase the upper limit, because their spiritual energy was special, gentle, gradual, and very steady, leaving no side effects. Spiritual power plus 500. Su Qi saw the pop-up window ticking up every second. And just then, a hoarse, ethereal voice slowly emerged. "You sure were a pain to find. You really made me search high and low. Venerable Yi Ju." With a bit of barely suppressed grinding of his teeth, the voice came straight from the black totem pattern on the other side of Su Qi's arm. Yi Ju was the title of the Venerable from Evil Town, and each Venerable naturally had their own prefixes and titles. Su Qi's eyebrows quirked slightly. Brother Apostle? To be honest, this call caught him somewhat off guard. But, thinking about it carefully, there seemed to have been several attempts to contact him before, but he was either in paradise, in the dueling grounds drenched in black rain, or in the forbidden lands of nihility, all without signal. Now that he finally had a connection, the other party had caught the timing and descended abruptly, not even giving him the option to answer or not. It was somewhat unexpected, but Su Qi was after all a professional. He smiled slightly. "Lord Apostle, I always have my own things to do. Sometimes I slack off, or don't want to answer calls after work. That's perfectly normal, isn't it?" But the Apostle didn't take notice of Su Qi's playful words, and instead, his voice carried a hint of hoarseness and indifference. "What exactly have you been doing? Without a reasonable explanation, I will have to issue an Apostle's judgment and deal with you severely." Although Venerables had great potential and countless possibilities, those not serving the Abyss Church and engaging in activities against the Church's tenets would naturally be dealt with by an Apostle. So, it was necessary to know, what exactly had Su Qi done? Sigh. Su Qi chuckled. "All this seriousness makes it seem like I committed some grave mistake. People die for wealth as birds die for food, and I aim to be the strongest Venerable. Of course then, I have to do something towards that goal." The Apostle frowned. "What have you done?" The fact that he began responding to Su Qi's question meant he was already influenced by Su Qi's words, shifting from questioning Su Qi to diverting his attention. "I'd love to say it's a secret." Lord Apostle spoke pointedly. "I'd still advise you to disclose it." Su Qi, squinting his eyes, had many thoughts running through his mind. He was never one to be passive, and would instantly turn any disadvantage to his advantage. And now, it was clear the Apostle had taken an interest in his recent words, and Su Qi intended to get something out of it. It's like this. I discovered the mechanical dimension. With these words, Su Chi distinctly felt some changes in the apostle's breathing. A venerable was like an artist about to debut, and apostles were like agents sent by the Abyss Company, who obviously knew more. Shattered machinery, collapsing mechas, strange energy. Su Chi picked and chose pieces of his experiences to share, embellishing with some fabricated details. The apostle fell into a long silence. Then it spoke slowly. Are you saying that, in the void you are traversing, you have found traces of the divine machinery kingdom and discovered a strong and strange energy aura, which is why you have been pursuing it? Su Chi clicked his fingers. As expected of Lord Apostle, clear and logical, instantly grasping the essence. You said too much. A few words would have sufficed. The apostle took a deep breath. At this very moment, it was no longer concerned about Su Chi's previous lack of contact, but was completely focused on the content just mentioned by Su Chi. After all, this matter was very, very significant within the church. Where did you discover these traces? The apostle asked directly, his voice deep. Su Chi inwardly smiled slowly. Had he not just hooked him? Although the apostle had yet to reveal a single word, it was obvious. They knew of the divine machinery kingdom's destruction, and perhaps there were some connections. He replied calmly, well, as for my personal opportunity, even an apostle isn't really obliged to know, right? With the information squeezed from Venerable Iju, Su Chi more or less understood the tasks expected of a venerable, and had a decent grasp on many things. For example, this one. Apart from the fixed resources provided by the church, the growth of a venerable's power and independent actions formed by personal will generally wouldn't be interfered with by the church. They also knew that for these top-tier potent potential users, no restraint meant the best growth. The apostle's expression darkened slightly, its tone hesitating slightly. This matter? What's that? Su Chi's tone held a hint of interest. Is there a secret? The apostle finally began to speak slowly. Normally, this should at least be known only to the venerable who control the master totems, but now I didn't expect that you've discovered the traces. I can reveal some to you. Under the arrangements of the master and some other beings, we are taking something beyond your current understanding, with the divine machinery kingdom being only part of it. And what you're searching for, unique to the divine machinery dimension, is also one of the church's current objectives. Su Chi narrowed his eyes. What is it? Unlimited energy. At the appearance of these words, Su Chi's eyelids imperceptibly twitched, not so much in surprise but rather because he didn't expect that they were also searching. And the evil god and some other beings. Su Chi narrowed his eyes. He didn't know if it referred to the god of chaos or others, and the secrets of the abyss were far from being fully dug up, revealed. In the confrontation between the god's palace and the abyss, what was the situation like, and what exactly did the outer gods, Terminators, represent? And the ancient paradise, the young man with black hair and so on. All of this, he knew virtually nothing about at present, because most of it was probably already buried in the vast, unreachable old days. Related traces and memories will not leave their mark on the annals of time. From the words of the angel envoy, Su Chi could perhaps guess that the so-called Terminator was also related to it. So you understand, the angel envoy spoke gravely. The clues to the divine machinery kingdom are very important to us. If you have any clues, you must report them to the church, and of course we will not mistreat you. I will personally apply for a reward for you. Su Chi paused. Reward? You haven't given me any in the past half-year. The venerable calculated time in half-year segments, during which the church would provide resources. Upon hearing this, the angel envoy's face turned dark as he rasped in a low growl. Do you have the nerve to say that? Do you think that's why I keep contacting you? Stay calm, Su Chi murmured to himself. But since it's requested by the church, I naturally won't shirk my duty and will disclose the location of that trace. Su Chi narrowed his eyes slightly. Of course, he would never disclose that the unlimited energy was on his own starship, currently being rigorously analyzed by Xiao Meng. He immediately provided a fictitious set of coordinates, their fabrication unimportant. Next, once Su Chi returned to his starship, he would quietly launch a ton or two of energy stones. Let them go in search of it. If they found it, he would concede defeat. Of course, Su Chi was extremely cautious in dealing with this matter, given that the search for this unlimited energy was extremely dangerous with the Abyss Church, the Terminator, and even other terrifying entities. He would naturally erase all traces. At this moment, Su Chi had gained an upper hand in conversation and started asking some questions to the Angel Envoy. Not until he noticed the Angel Envoy becoming irritable did he slightly smile and stop probing. Using his status as a venerable, he could not only fleece some benefits but also glean various internal messages. "Don't be too curious," the Angel Envoy said gravely. "In this journey to the extremely evil world, you are to participate too. I will have a top-tier force host you and arrange an identity for you. This is an opportunity. If you can leap over the Dragon Gate and become this journey's descender, then all you want to know, you can freely obtain." The Angel Envoy had confirmed all that needed to be confirmed and had finished all necessary notifications. Has the Venerable's plan's prologue begun? Su Chi watched the totem slowly dim and extinguish as the Angel Envoy disconnected. He spoke softly to himself. To become a descender, Although the Angel Envoy had not described everything, he roughly understood. Simply put, numerous venerables gathered in the land of extreme evil, and upon entering the dark zone, the power of the evil god would choose the most suitable venerable for descent. Although it was just a sliver of the evil god's power, it was the first step toward the evil god's revival. This is indeed the prologue, and the chosen venerable, even if the descent is brief, would experience supreme glory, and most likely a great chance in the future to be a bishop or priest candidate, with a promising path ahead. However, Su Chi touched his spiritual eyes. Despite foreseeing the descent of the evil god, this time it's going to be a direct confrontation. Online ties lead to this tragic relationship offline. I need to break through quickly and then boost my strength and trump cards as much as possible. The situation this time is probably bigger than imagined. The gathering of numerous top forces, various entities within the ancient world fragments, and many venerables as well as shadows of the Abyss Church. The descent of the evil god, not to mention the stirrings of the god of chaos. And previously, when illuminated by starlight in nihility, he saw a vast number of large, dense outlines, numerous fragments of the world ship and more, all signaling. This time it's going to be big, also marking the formal unfolding of hostilities between the present world and the Abyss. Spiritual power plus 500. Spiritual power plus 500. Current spiritual power 1053143. It's almost full. As Su Chi chatted with the Angel Envoy, he was also rapidly absorbing spiritual energy. His aura had changed from extraordinary to somewhat dangerous, naturally due to storing massive amounts of spiritual energy within his body, which also caused changes in his aura. And this was just a promotion below extraordinary. Stepping onto the extraordinary is said to officially introduce one to the sequence path, which is crucial for ascending into extraordinary, becoming a top powerhouse, and even attaining divinity. Of course, this path is extremely difficult to traverse. And at this moment, Su Chi also looked outwards. For now, as his spiritual power recovered and his spiritual power unusually developed, he sensed a ripple of fluctuation. It seems the immortal master is returning. However, he was not in a hurry. Boom! Su Chi's aura suddenly vibrated. His spiritual energy was nearly perfect. A substantial amount of spirit stone was being powerfully absorbed from all the drifting spiritual power. The three paths of sequence were also displaying their various terrifying abilities of absorption, helping Su Chi break through barriers and limits simultaneously. Do you want to start ascension now? Each ascension requires a fixed input of spiritual energy or ascending items to replace part of the spiritual energy, which can save consumption. A message from paradise appeared before Su Chi's eyes. This is why ascension consumes a great deal of resources, just like the gacha mechanics in games, but since Su Chi was currently located at the spirit stone veins, there was no need to worry about resources or to look for ascending items to offset consumption. He began immediately. Do you want to commit 1 million spiritual energy? Any item containing related energy can be consumed. Come. A series of pop-up windows were appearing. Ascending in progress. Success rate 2.7%. Failed. 1 million spiritual energy is needed to initiate the next ascension. Ascending in progress. Success rate 4.5%. Failed. 1 million. Ascending in progress. Success rate 3.8%. Failed. 1 million. Series of ascension pop-up windows kept appearing in Su Chi's sight, and the spirit stone veins around him kept breaking, sending stones cascading. Su Chi smiled slightly. This ascension is much blacker than any gacha game. Of course, the situation for others was quite different, with most ordinary people having an ascension probability fluctuating between 80% to 99% in the early sequence. But after all, Su Chi was no ordinary person. He owned 3 paths of sequence, and each one was of the highest caliber. To wear the divine crown, one must bear its weight. But this probability, isn't it a bit too harsh? Su Chi looked at the kilometer-long spirit stone veins. Just take it slow. I can still afford it. Qin Hao and his senior brother in white, whose meridians he had sealed, were staring at the distant rippling ripples. Qin Hao's complexion turned incredibly grim, filled with dread and clenching fury. In contrast, the senior brother in white was all smiles, as if seeing a lifeline, and he yelled, "You're all dead. The immortal master. The immortal master is back. Prepare to die. That guy will surely be refined into a puppet by the immortal master. No one can escape." Qin Hao clenched his teeth tightly, a terrifying aura emanating from those ripples, and a figure in Taoist robe also stepped forward, with an indifferent expression as sharp as cut iron, and eyes deep and merciless. He exuded a formidable malevolence and an unbearable terrifying chill. This is the immortal master. Qin Hao trembled all over, narrowing his pupils. Golden core perfection, half-step, nascent soul. He instantly felt a vast gap. It seemed the other could easily crush him with a mere finger. And the immortal master's gaze just slowly surveyed the surroundings, the piles of rubble that had fallen into ruins, and the scattered flesh and blood of many disciples. His eyes showed no change, but one could feel the air growing colder around him. Interesting. When I'm about to receive an honored guest, trouble always seems to arise. It was all their doing. The senior brother in white shouted, "Immortal master, save me. Save." He suddenly stopped speaking, because the immortal master simply began to whistle softly, and the next moment, a cold light pierced right through the white-clothed senior brother's skull. It was a flying shuttle gleaming with cold light. The immortal master said softly, "Too noisy." Qin Hao watched the scene with shock, a chill filling his heart. To think that just because of some noise, he would kill his own subordinate disciple. But he could no longer afford to be shocked. He knew he was no match for his adversary. Reaching behind him, he frantically pinched at his magic formulas, wanting to leave a message for Su Chi to run away fast. To have one person survive was enough, and he himself would do everything in his power to delay them. Besides you, there's another rat. The immortal master squinted his eyes, looking into the distance, really reckless, daring to break into my warehouse. He spoke softly. "I've always been the one to plunder others, and yet someone has set their sights on my goods." The spirit stone veins seemed to be emitting overflowing spiritual power. That was good stuff. It had not been easy for him to mine a vein, which could sell in the present world for tens of millions of spirit coins, and it was priceless at that. Of course, what was more important, he wanted to leave it for that venerable, to establish a stronger relationship with them. And at this moment, "It's time for you to depart." The immortal master calmly looked at Qin Hao. His lips moved slightly, and behind him, the flying shuttle with a tail of red light zipped through the air with lightning speed. Crack! The flying shuttle pierced directly through the center of Qin Hao's forehead. But the very next moment, the immortal master exclaimed in surprise because the image of Qin Hao in front of him was merely an afterimage made of mist. Forgot, there's also the clone technique. And the real Qin Hao was already running madly along the shattered path, the wind bolstering his speed, his eyes full of dread. That flying shuttle from just a moment ago, if he truly had been standing there, would have given him no time to react. This further emphasized the vast power disparity between him and the Immortal Master, proving that the gap between early-stage Golden Core and Golden Core perfection was indeed difficult to bridge. Click! The Immortal Master clicked his tongue, a hint of admiration in his eyes. Such amazing strength. Each spell is like a trait. It's just a pity that outsiders simply can't cultivate them. These secrets will only be kept for that venerable. The flying shuttle danced around the Immortal Master, following his whistles, then rapidly crossed through the air, spanning hundreds, thousands of meters, without losing any speed, the red light piercing straight towards Qin Hao's figure. "Old thief, I'll fight you." Seeing he could not avoid it, Qin Hao, with his eyesight locked by the energy, roared in rage with eyes bloodshot, and expanded the spell in his hand to 30 centimeters. A blue-white pattern formed, releasing all the spiritual power in a burst. The Immortal Master, without a word, watched with an indifferent gaze that seemed to be looking at an ant. The sharp, lightning-fast flying shuttle broke through everything. And just at that moment, the ground shook violently. The entire heavenly mountain roared. The Immortal Master narrowed his eyes, looking down at the ground as cracks started to appear beneath his feet, as if the underground had been hollowed out and was collapsing. The cracks grew larger, and visible gorges formed, with large amounts of rocks and soil falling downward. Qin Hao did not know what had happened, but he immediately noticed a change in the Immortal Master's expression. It became colder, filled with murderous intent. Spirit stone veins. He held a massive spirit stone vein in his hand, deeply buried under Heavenly Mountain, and such a collapse could only mean that there was trouble with the spirit stone vein. But as the collapse became more extensive and the shaking more violent, the Immortal Master's expression became even uglier, with lots of dull stones breaking out from within the vast gorges. They were all spirit stones drained of energy and spiritual power, and once the energy drained away, these would turn into ordinary broken rocks, and additionally, with a stomp of the Immortal Master's foot, they turned into fragile powder. Another rat, daring to touch my spirit stone veins. His eyes were cold, and his killing intent suffused the air. Although the spirit stone veins were vast beyond measure, underpinning the whole heavenly mountain, enough for tens of thousands of people to use for a year. But he would not allow anyone to touch his belongings. Boom! Another thunderous boom sounded, and this time the Immortal Master's face turned even grimmer, as hundreds of dull spirit stones were flung out. This meant that the little rat didn't just nibble on an insignificant corner of the iceberg, but had taken a vicious bite. And Qin Hao was also astonished. He knew that Su Qi had gone after the spirit stones, seemingly to recover his own strength. But hundreds of spirit stones had their spiritual power sucked away. How was that possible? Ordinary cultivators couldn't possibly draw in too much spiritual power, because it was easy to burst their meridians and be driven to madness. More than a dozen is typically the limit for cultivators at late-stage Golden Core, but hundreds seemed a bit excessive. However, the next moment, bang, 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 the entire area around Heavenly Mountain experienced widespread collapses, with numerous cracks, causing the Immortal Master's pupils to narrow. And at the same time, there were a great number of a tsunami-like outpouring of dull spirit stones surging out, like a rain of dull spirit stones. They shot high into the sky in a vast fall, and the Immortal Master's eyelids twitched violently, his face turning ashen as he looked below. The thousands of kilometers of spirit stone veins had turned dull and crumbled into rubble, their spiritual power completely depleted within. His eyes widened, and he let out a thunderous roar. "Where is my spirit stone vein? All drained. How was this possible? What in the world was happening? Such a massive spirit stone vein. How could it just be that simply drained?" And with it appeared a figure, Su Qi's form standing on the crumbling spirit stone vein, casually dodging all the swiftly shooting rubble. Immortal Master's eyes, filled with bloodshot, instantly noticed Su Qi. Without any hesitation, the flying shuttle burst forth with terrifying speed, charging towards Su Qi with astonishing red cold light. It wasn't for any other reason. His intuition told him that everything happening here had something to do with the little mouse in front of him. And the moment this guy appeared, the Immortal Master instinctively felt a prickling pain, a strong urge to strike enveloping him. "Brother Su, dodge qiquely," Qin Hao roared. He understood the fearsome nature of that thing. Unlike any ordinary magic formulas, that flying shuttle could lock onto its target, unable to be evaded by mere speed, and moreover, he worried that Su Qi, relying on his special strength, might also be unable to dodge. "Stay calm." Su Qi smiled slightly. "Uncle, I have advanced to Golden Core." "Qin Hao, you've broken through from Foundation Establishment to Golden Core, not from Golden Core to Nascent Soul. Why so confident?" While the Immortal Master's eyes were cold. "Golden Core? That's a joke." Whoosh! D. But Su Qi reached out and directly caught the flying shuttle. Intense vibrations, emitting a loud boom as the air exploded, creating a huge shockwave centered on Su Qi. The surrounding stones were scattered by this force. This showed how terrifying the power of the flying shuttle was. Qin Hao's eyes widened. He caught it. The Immortal Master was somewhat surprised that Su Qi caught it single-handedly, but his lips curved in a cold smirk. "No one has ever dared to catch my flying shuttle." Decades ago, he had just entered the 7th rank and unwittingly saw this flying shuttle in the black market. At that time, no one recognized its value. He also spent all his wealth to purchase it. And then, the Immortal Master also unveiled the astounding power of this flying shuttle, enabling him to quickly climb, and scrupulously advancing to the peak of the 7th rank through killings. But he knew well, this flying shuttle definitely possessed more to its power, and its prohibitive power would annihilate any foe trying to get close. The flying shuttle was glowing with dangerous red light, and in the next moment, the prohibitive power would explode, and this little guy was still holding on to it, little knowing he was about to die. After all, this was an immortal, even legendary-grade treasure. The Immortal Master suddenly widened his eyes, because he saw on Su Qi's body ripples forming, a bizarre black hole akin to a purple dark star appearing behind Su Qi. "What is that?" The Immortal Master was first stunned. Then a hint of greed flashed in his eyes. He instantly recognized the extraordinary value of the entity. But as the Immortal Master prepared to control the flying shuttle, to unleash fierce explosive power in the next moment, the flying shuttle suddenly began to tremble, and even faintly losing his control over it, being constantly tugged, as if it was trapped by the dark star black hole behind Su Qi, unable to break free completely. "Damn it!" The Immortal Master showed a vein on his face, frantically harnessing his spiritual energy, desperate to get the flying shuttle away. But the flying shuttle seemed afraid, terrified, trembling, as if severely suppressed. Why? Why is there such horrifying suppressive force? What exactly is that thing? And in the next moment, the flying shuttle was abruptly swallowed by the dark star black hole. The Immortal Master shuddered, his eyes beginning to show blood strands. He could no longer perceive the existence of the flying shuttle, no longer feel that powerful object that had been with him for decades. Whistle! The Immortal Master issued a sharp whistle. The vibrating waves carrying terrifying spiritual energy made Qin Hao's face pale. He was trying to call back the flying shuttle, but there was no response whatsoever. While Su Qi paused, muttering to himself, "So this is how you whistle?" He whistled a melody-like sound. The next moment, a black and red, new model flying shuttle with an extraordinary aura started dancing around him. Immortal Master gazed with bloodshot eyes at the flying shuttle that had once been his own, now soaring around Su Qi. A sense of betrayal, as if he had been cuckolded, welled up within him. He roared, "That's mine." Su Qi smiled faintly. "Sorry, I've already modified it." The Dark Star shuttle suddenly burst forth in an instant, moving several times faster than before and generating rising gravitational forces, fracturing every mountain body it passed. And it locked onto Immortal Master. In the blink of an eye, Immortal Master's body was pierced. Blood spurted out dozens of meters. Under Qin Hao's shocked eyes, his face turned pale, staring fixedly at Su Qi. I. Terrifying spiritual energy burst forth. How could I possibly die here? Despite his heart being pierced, Immortal Master burst into extreme rage and bellowed. He madly approached Su Qi. In barely a moment. I don't care who you are. I want you dead. Snap. Yet, Su Qi simply grabbed Immortal Master's neck with one hand. And Immortal Master's eyes seemed like they would pop out from the agony. It was as if his entire body was under enormous oppressive force, about to be crushed the next moment. Oh, I might have used too much strength, Su Qi sheepishly said. After all, I've just broken through to the golden core, and haven't fully mastered the strength that comes with the advancement. Hearing this, Immortal Master's eyes filled with blood vessels, but more so with horror. Qin Hao, dumbstruck, watched the scene unfold, then looked at himself. Do you really call this golden core? While Su Qi slightly squinted, he looked at the sky and muttered, It seems we're a bit short on time. Without any hesitation, his spiritual eyes flickered, and a mysterious power directly descended upon Immortal Master. Su Qi dragged him into the fingertip universe. A few moments passed. Immortal Master stopped struggling. His spirit seemed to collapse limply, as if he had suffered a terribly frightening spiritual impact. Brother Su. Qin Hao hurriedly ran over, excitedly saying, I didn't expect you to actually take down Immortal Master. Let's hurry to the front lines now. He was still worried about his companions at the front line. No need. Su Qi paused. The disciples of Heavenly Mountain have also received the order to retreat and are preparing to activate the transmission array to return immediately. The front line has already been liberated. Qin Hao's eyes widened. When did this happen? 5 seconds later. Immortal Master, puzzled, shakily pressed a jade talisman, flickering with spiritual energy. Then a stream of light soared up. Moving as fast as a wave of light, it sped towards the distance. Now, Su Qi softly said, Immortal Master, you know what to do. Still shaking, Immortal Master leaped toward the ruptured ground of Heavenly Mountain. Qin Hao was baffled. Brother Su, what's wrong with him? And what is he about to do? Su Qi said, He might be feeling incredibly ashamed for all the bad deeds he's done. So he's jumped off a building. ? And his jumping down, he's probably planning to set off the remaining 1% of the spirit stone veins during the return of the Heavenly Mountain disciples, to bury them together with the lives that once died there. I advise you to leave quickly now. Fingertip Universe had already shattered Immortal Master's spirit, and the spiritual eyes and word spirit had imposed a weaker influence on him. At least for half an hour, Immortal Master would remain in a puzzled state, of course. Any self-inflicted stimulations to his spirit would also release him from this influence. But it didn't matter anymore. Half an hour was enough for the many Heavenly Mountain disciples to receive Immortal Master's highest orders, to quickly return from the transmission array. Qin Hao. He wanted to say he didn't believe it, but he didn't dare disbelieve it. What about you, Brother Su? Me? Su Qi paused. Didn't you check the weather forecast today? ? Qin Hao was puzzled. What do you mean? Su Qi looked up. Murky raindrops were already lightly falling around his ears. The clouds above blanketed like massive patches of dark abyss, overshadowing the sky. It was as if dark clouds hovered threateningly over the city, like the apocalypse was about to descend. Su Qi slowly extended his hand, his palm black water seemingly eroding within it. He gently said, Today, overcast, heavy rain, not suitable for traveling. Heavy rain. Qin Hao looked up at the sky dome where the sun shone brightly, the sky clear. Where is this heavy rain coming from? Before he could turn back. Brother Su. Su Qi stood still, watching Qin Hao look around in utter confusion.
Brother Su, Brother Su.
The voice echoed in the empty heavenly mountain. Su Chi calmly muttered to himself, "Can't see anymore, huh? Or perhaps, I have been erased from existence." He was now in the midst of a downpour, himself already covered in black rain, while the sky dome above was dark and gloomy, surrounded by black and white. Qin Hao's voice had stopped. The original heavenly mountain was also decaying step by step, with much of the terrain changing. It was as if time had already lost its effect. Everyone tainted by ominous signs, disappearing without reason. Seems like they must have experienced these things. Su Chi's spiritual eyes flickered slightly, as this place differed from the old days within nihility. The black rain, unlike the old days' brutal annihilation, was indeed gentler. At least, the heavenly descendants had not been completely erased, and the cultivators still retained related memories. And Su Chi had not encountered the kind of crazy backlash as before. This place and the dueling grounds black rain are quite similar. What exactly are they trying to express? Su Chi walked through this world covered by the black rain, his spiritual energy seemingly allowing him temporary freedom to move. He was now in a state oscillating between existence and non-existence, and his spiritual energy was being consumed. At the same time, an interface with ancient patterns popped up in front of Su Chi. Please note, player, you have triggered a special event in the shattered Immortal Path dimension. Extremely dangerous. Event. The erased Immortal Path Steel. Task. Please find the Immortal Path Steel and successfully comprehend it before your spiritual energy is exhausted. To leave, or else the player will be erased from existence. Note. As this is a trial of the dimension, the strength relates to the player's rank. It's guidance from the ancient paradise again. Su Chi discovered, does the ancient paradise appear every time it's about the old days? And he didn't delve into this point, just following the guidance for now. After all, time was limited. However, isn't my spiritual energy being consumed a little too slowly? Su Chi glanced at his spiritual energy, decreasing by roughly 10 points per second, which amounted to only 36,000 points in an hour. And he had just broken through to 7th rank with not much of an increase in spiritual energy values, but the upper limit had been removed, and the density and quality of spiritual energy had also climbed up a rung. There were many other changes which he would not discuss for now. With his spiritual energy values around 1,200,000, this meant he could stay for more than 30 hours. Could it be because I've just entered 7th rank? Why else would the Path of series have the word path in its name, but because each stage has a beginning and an end, and each step leaves footprints on the Path of series. That's why the current situation had arisen. Regardless, I need to find that so-called Immortal Path Steel first. If luck serves well and I discover any ancient relic here, that would be perfect. Su Chi had just broken through to 7th rank, conveniently fitting to integrate into a new sequence path. The more paths of the sequence, the stronger it naturally becomes. Just in terms of the upper limit of spiritual energy, 3 paths mean 3 times the upper limit of others, plus his own 3 sequences were extraordinary, making it entirely different. Of course, this ascension also let Su Chi realize how difficult ascending was, demanding too many resources. He had completely drained the spirit stone veins of Heavenly Mountain. After all, the probability was too low, and his own luck wasn't good. Your mother's kiss almost completely exhausted the spirit stone veins and still almost failed. Hard to imagine how many resources I'd need in the future to ascend. Starting now with a single spirit stone vein, later might need an entire planet. Su Chi walked on the ground, endlessly pounded by black rain, not aimlessly, although the guide only instructed him to find the Immortal Path Steel, without providing any clues. But in fact, Su Chi had already spotted some subtle signs within the myriad black rain. Objects that had not been thoroughly eroded, resembling fragments, erupted forth. Plus, identification with the question mark, Immortal Path Steel fragment after burst. From the dispersion of the fragments, Su Chi easily calculated their origin, confirming their central point. Let's go. Su Chi did not linger, he sprinted forth. Though there was plenty of time, There was no need to waste it here. He corrected his direction with the question mark and calculations, and beyond that, he also saw all sorts of monochrome scenes along the way. Majestic mountains, with faint silhouettes of Buddhist temples and Taoist shrines staggeringly emerging from the shadows. They too were black and white, housing statues of true monarchs, Buddhas, and so on, with faces unclear but exuding extreme authority. As Su Chi continued, the surrounding black and white became even denser, the black rain pouring down like a flood, as if to submerge him. At the same time, Su Chi looked up at the black and white sky dome ahead. No, it should no longer be called the Sky Dome, but the Black and White Star River. There were hundreds of floating mansions slowly emerging, standing majestically within the Star River like planets. Only, they were also covered by an endless black waterfall, devoid of life, and among the galaxy mansions in all directions, there was just one, a 3-meter-tall stele standing at the center. This is the Immortal Path stele. Su Chi looked over. There were no inscriptions on it, just a blank stele, but it exuded a powerful aura not eroded by the black rain, and was in the black and white the only existence that possessed color. Its surroundings for hundreds of meters were also not eroded by the endless black rain, seemingly displaying its extraordinariness. Without hesitation, Su Chi stepped directly into it. Boom! Su Chi's body suddenly shook, and a powerful oppressive force directly rushed into his mind overwhelmingly. It was too sudden, but after Su Chi's spiritual power had broken through the 7th rank, it became even more terrifying. He directly withstood it. Well, are you trying a sudden attack? However, the next moment, Su Chi realized that it was not an attack, but merely the aura emitted by the surroundings of the Immortal Path stele. He squinted his eyes slightly, raised his hand, and spiritual energy formed a defense around him. After reaching the 7th rank, his spiritual energy could not only regenerate but, with the help of the 3 paths of the sequence, seemed to recover quite quickly. It wouldn't be like before when he needed external resources to gradually replenish. Moreover, that was spiritual energy could finally be released externally, allowing more methods of attack and defense. Let's see what this Immortal Path stele truly is. Su Chi walked towards it with a moderate pace, taking everything into his sight. As the center of everything, he seemed to be able to see the various mansions in the Star River and numerous sects and temples of the entire world connected by magic formula-like patterns on the Immortal Path stele. Is this saying, this is the core of everything in the Immortal Path? A light flashed in Su Chi's mind, conjuring the notion of the heart of divine weapon, symbolizing unlimited energy. Having seen the word dimensions before, and since the Immortal Path world is another dimension, could it be like the divine machinery kingdom possessing a supercore as well? Su Chi felt he might have grasped something significant. The information exchanged with the angel envoy was appearing chaotically. I shouldn't assume. I'm an experimenter. Su Chi temporarily retracted his speculation and quickened his pace, facing the increasingly heavy pressure and continuously approaching the Immortal Path stele. The oppressive feeling was extremely strong, a kind of spiritual pressure mixed with spiritual and spiritual powers, suppressive with each step. Spiritual energy was also heavily consumed, but that was for ordinary cultivators who had just entered the 7th rank. Su Chi's pace never stopped. In just 1 minute, the air around Su Chi burst inch by inch, and massive fragments of stone erupted wildly. Any stone that could exist here bore an astonishing luster and strength. But Su Chi no longer paid attention to these because he had already reached the front of the Immortal Path stele. The surrounding terrifying pressure was bursting astonishingly, and the Immortal Path stele underwent a change. A character manifested on it. Wu, good word. This calligraphy is vigorous and strong. Su Chi praised under the intense oppressive force. But the guide said it would let me perceive. Su Chi's eyes were bright as he stretched out his hand toward the Immortal Path stele. And the next moment, Immortal Path is profound and elusive. A voice slowly emerged. These 4 words made Su Chi shiver. He looked around. Everything gained color. Numerous temples and sects materialized on the horizon, with countless cultivators sitting respectfully and immersed on the vast ground. It seemed they were listening, and as Su Qi raised his head, the mansions in the Star River Sky Dome also had immortals appearing. They were preaching to all beings within the star space. Those 4 words had just come from a white-haired elder in the middle. His immortal energy wafted around him, and his body radiated an undeniable gentle glow. His voice was hoarse and elusive, yet it resonated like a great bell, reaching the ears of everyone below, with vast amounts of spiritual energy flowing with each word, letting the understanding cultivators perceive the path and breakthrough on the spot. All the residences in the Star River, they are all immortals, and each of these immortals is a divine being. The sound of immortal teachings was like a rainbow, nurturing every life, each gaining enlightenment in turn. Su Qi also wanted to gain enlightenment, but unfortunately, this preaching was of no use to him, as he realized that all this was an ancient illusion from the distant past. Plus, it seems that something is about to happen. Su Qi noticed the anomaly sooner than anyone else present. From the depths of the Star River, he saw a tiny question mark, where slowly appeared the word, Black Rain. Meanwhile, massive dark clouds gathered wildly. The white-haired elder naturally stopped his preaching, slowly lifted his head, and looked into the depths of the Galaxy Mansion. His brow was calm as he watched. Softly, he said, "It has finally arrived." In just a moment, the sky dome dimmed, and all the immortals of the Galaxy Mansion flickered their forms, their expressions cool and collected as they watched the expanse of Black Rain, which expanded like a black hole. And the countless cultivators below all stood up. Those who were in the midst of sudden enlightenment or breakthroughs were being protected, and each one drew their weapons, forming colorful magic formulas with their hands. It seemed they had been waiting for this. The next moment, Su Qi also saw, within the expanding black hole, numerous entities slowly appeared in vast numbers, terrifyingly numerous like stars. Many cultivators roared lowly, and the immortals charged directly at them. The white-haired elder was even staring at a massive figure in the void. The battle erupted, and Su Qi only had time to see 5 characters. Old Days Terminator. The scene before his eyes then slowly faded. Old Days, Terminator. These 2 words were all too familiar to him. There was no need to talk about the old days, and Terminator was the prime culprit behind the destruction of the Divine Machinery Kingdom. And now it appeared in the Immortal Path dimension. The outcome of this battle. The scene before Su Qi's eyes slowly reappeared, and when it did, the land was littered with bodies. Monsters of the old days, cultivators, and various massive corpses drifting in the Star River. Undoubtedly, they had been defeated. This is the defeat CG. And the Star River was filled with endless black rain, like a Star River waterfall, swallowing each Immortal Path world one after another. However, just at that moment, the white-haired elder, bloodied all over, appeared in the void, seemingly having battled with the strongest entity to a far-off place. And the battle had not yet decided a victor. Behind him, a black figure was slowly emerging. Su Qi squinted his eyes, feeling that the figure was somewhat familiar, but he couldn't make out the face as it was shrouded in a large amount of old days black fog. Even question marks could only reveal the outer contours of the old days. You have come to seize the secrets of the Immortal Path. The white-haired elder merely closed his eyes slightly, and suddenly many chains appeared on his body. For the other 11 lives of the masses, I will not let you succeed. The next moment, he burst forth with overwhelming strength that could split the Star River, shattering the entire Immortal Path Kingdom. Massive fragments scattered towards the endless void, and he also triggered the old days black hole, hurling everything that remained into it, leaving only that phantom, which stood quietly for some time, calm yet eerie, and then slowly disappeared into this old days, swallowed by the black and white. Meanwhile, the scene in Su Qi's vision also gradually dimmed, and he returned to the side of the Immortal Path steel. Is this all that the destruction of the Immortal Path Kingdom entailed, that so-called old days Terminator, searching for the core of each dimension? The world at the dueling ground seemed to be the last fragments scattered by the white-haired elder. And that phantom, although Su Chi hadn't obtained any information, he felt that the figure was much like the evil god. The old days itself came from the abyss, and the evil god led everything in the abyss. What kind of entities were these gods of the abyss, and what exactly was the abyss? All these questions kept emerging, not so easy to resolve. However, Su Chi had also gained quite a bit. At least I know now. They are all searching for the cores of each dimension, like the heart of divine weapon that represents unlimited energy, and this immortal path steel before me. And there are 12 dimensions in total, so there should be 12 cores. And the present world. The questions in Su Chi's mind finally had an answer. It is one of the 12, and it's also the largest dimension. Su Chi seemed to have seen what the evil gods from the abyss were fighting over. No matter their ultimate goal, their actions have always been aimed at seizing all core elements. Each of the 12 dimensions possessed a core, although it was currently unknown how many times they had succeeded or failed. But ultimately, the focus would inevitably turn to the vast and immense present world dimension. He muttered to himself, "Don't tell me they want to gather all 12 cores and snap their fingers. What a Thanos imitator." But that was just a joke, regardless of what their ultimate goal was or what the abyss truly represented. Su Chi had already realized how important and dangerous the heart of divine weapon in his hands was. The evil god and the old days Terminator from the abyss, and even the destruction realm, sparked a super war, slaughtering countless lives, all for these cores. The gods naturally understood the importance of these cores. Su Chi still remembered the words of the white-haired elder in the scene just now, who said to send the immortal path steel into nihility, not only for their immortal path dimension but also for the sake of the 12 creatures. It's messed up. Su Chi looked at the immortal path steel in front of him and thought about the heart of divine weapon he owned. I've gotten myself into big trouble again. But this big trouble is related to the abyss and the evil god, which suddenly makes it a lot more comforting and familiar. It all comes back to friend. Su Chi felt no pressure. After all, since the moment he took the evil god's eye, he had unwittingly been caught in this extreme vortex. Having many lice does not itch. As the sect hierarch of the hustlers, why fear this tremendous danger? Oh, right. Aren't there many talented people ready to join the hustlers? Looking for a grand stage? Well, the stage is big enough now. The sect hierarch continued to strive. Su Chi had left the nihility character just now and had seen what had happened. And now, his eyes slightly moved. The character Wu on the immortal path steel had disappeared at some unknown time. The character that appeared was Wu, which seemed like a title with hundreds of obscure Taoist scriptures beneath it. Meanwhile, an ancient brush, bearing the aura of sweeping strokes, was slowly floating next to it. Shall I outline it? Su Chi muttered to himself. This newcomer tutorial? Who designed it? Normally, everyone would think of using this brush to write a short essay. Good thing I'm quick-witted and realized it's for outlining the characters on the immortal path steel. What kind of reasoning was that? A slowly rising glance stealthily fixed on Su Chi, rendered silent by his last remark. Not understanding. Shouldn't a normal person outline? Who would think of writing something on the immortal path steel? But, just in case, Su Chi paused. I'll try the short essay first. Su Chi picked up the brush to outline on the immortal path steel. He was somewhat shocked. He really wrote it. As the guardian of the immortal path steel, it could hardly bear watching. You must not desecrate the immortal path steel. It spoke with an authoritative voice as Su Chi approached the immortal path steel, and it burst forth with tremendous power. The surrounding rubble was blown away by the force of the disturbance. Only Su Chi stood there, his clothes fluttering, immovable, his expression not even showing surprise. Elder, don't rush. I haven't even started writing yet. He had naturally noticed long ago that there was a consciousness, or correctly speaking, a wisp of a soul residing in this immortal path steel. It slowly manifested a phantom from the immortal path steel, sizing up Su Chi. And Su Chi also looked at it. This gave it an inexplicably touched feeling, as if this foreign young man had seen through it. It slowly withdrew its glance and spoke. I am the guardian of the immortal path steel, meant to guide all who reach this place. What you need to do is to outline all the Taoist scriptures with the brush in your hand. Su Qi raised the brush and exclaimed, So it really is outlining, quite unexpected. Unexpected my ass. The immortal path is vast. Each character holds endless cultivation rhythm. Each stroke and line is a part of comprehending the path. It spoke slowly. If you can achieve this, you will receive the care of the immortal path. I see. Su Qi picked up the brush, and just before he started outlining, he suddenly paused. However, esteemed guardian, Su Qi smiled slightly, I'd like to ask one more question. It didn't respond. It seemed to be waiting for Su Qi's question. Su Qi softly said, What if it can't be done? What will happen then? I am aware that quite a few people must have entered here, but they never appeared again. It seemed to momentarily fall into silence and, after a few breaths, it decided to answer Su Qi's question. This is the ominous depth, with an aged, ethereal voice. You see the surrounding black and white, right? If you fail, it said gently, you will be trapped here, waiting for your spiritual power to exhaust and then decay to be swallowed in it, completely disappearing. It seems, Su Qi muttered, that the others before me have all failed, haven't they? Its manifested phantom slightly nodded. He looked at the character Wu and the obscure Taoist scriptures beneath it. Is outlining really that difficult? It slowly spoke. You should know. The scene you just witnessed is from a very distant ancient period, when those beings had just appeared. Su Qi raised his eyebrows. Just appeared? Was it a time before they had erupted into a great war with the present world? That was indeed quite ancient. However, it did not continue this topic, instead, with its phantom slowly gazing around. From that era to now, countless people have probably entered this place. Then, how many have succeeded? Without exception, they all failed. I understand. It watched as Su Qi picked up a brush and approached, not uttering a word, whereas before it would only guide from the shadows. But as time went on, it would even make contact with outsiders, exchanging information. Due to so many failures, so many people decaying here, it was enough to make it feel an endless darkness and confusion. No one could completely outline this single character, because each stroke revealed an infinite path. Only by completely rendering this character would one be deemed worthy to inherit the immortal path. But since ancient times, hardly anyone has completed this impossible trial. Many would collapse mentally, get lost, or go mad upon merely touching the brush to the surface. This included countless cultivators and great powers. The reason it felt such confusion here was because it had not yet told the young man in front of it a certain fact. From all of history, only one had achieved this, the white-haired elder who led the entire world of the immortal path. The chance of encountering a successor who could compare to such a world-opening figure was as negligible as a speck of dust in the Star River. To be honest, I can sense the numbness of your heart. Su Qi spoke gently, but as the sect hierarch of the hustlers, I want to tell you a principle. He steadied his brush and pressed it onto the surface. No matter how many people fall off the narrow bridge, there will always be some who stride across like a shooting star. The next moment, the brush sunk 3 parts into the wood, moving along the stroke, absorbing massive amounts of spiritual energy. Leaving ink behind and a glimmer of light began to emerge with the birth of the strokes. The entire piece contained hundreds of characters. Not many, yet not few, every character was exceedingly difficult, carrying an endless cultivation rhythm's oppression. But the next moment, it widened its eyes. Shock filled its gaze. The Taoist scripture of enlightenment was rising inch by inch, emitting strands of peculiar aura. What's happening? It had never seen anyone outline and copy so smoothly, so successfully. Moreover, without the slightest pause, this youth's cultivation heart, so incredibly firm? Torrents of cultivation rhythm mixed with endless pressure assaulted Su Qi, but Su Qi simply watched calmly. What is a firm cultivation heart? Su Qi was simply accustomed to it, his mind unrippled. Since entering the instance, he had lived in close quarters with the evil god's strength day and night, and his spiritual power had been soaring every moment, eventually integrating it into himself upon entering the sequence. Especially when the evil god's strength began to surge violently, although he had not mentioned it. Even without the surges, the evil god's most terrifying mental oppression incessantly hammered his consciousness every second. Fortunately, Su Qi was naturally optimistic, coupled with a will far stronger than ordinary people. He was not only unaffected but also quite cheerful. However, this had allowed Su Qi to develop an unimaginably stable spirit. This was what the Tomb Guardian called the cultivation heart. The Guardian watched as Su Qi effortlessly brought the character halfway to completion, shaking and disbelieving. This thing, is it so easy to write? Many people needed an entire hour to write even one character, and after a few more, they'd be half dead. And this guy, he was simply going wild with writing. The Taoist scripture in Su Qi's hands kept flickering into life, all the cultivation rhythm within it furiously attacking him. However, it still couldn't shake Su Qi in the slightest. The more he engraved, outlined, the more the pleasure in his eyes was involuntarily released. The Guardian watched this scene, even more bewildered. What is this? This guy even had his own momentum. Even the cultivation rhythm within the Taoist scripture was cooperating with him. With every character completed of the 100 in the piece, it would provoke violent tremors in the immortal path steel, and even the ground itself shook intensely. The patterns connecting to the Galaxy Mansion also flickered along. Su Qi was unfazed, totally absorbed in the process as his spiritual power floated freely, connecting with an abundance of cultivation rhythm. Even the power of the evil god collided with it. He hadn't even noticed. As he outlined the final 9 separate characters of the Taoist scripture, each character he wrote quietly shed its golden glow, blending into his body. Meanwhile, in another place, the originally empty and severed section at the 7th rank of the Path of Series, beneath the integration of each character, slowly stretched out a sequence path, linked to the endless darkness. After finishing the entire script, Su Qi slowly came back to his senses, somewhat reluctantly setting down the brush, gazing at the shimmering Taoist scripture before him. He clicked his tongue softly. This is the sect hierarch's calligraphy, bold and vigorous, grand and bold. Though somewhat in wild cursive, it possesses a unique charm amidst the chaotic order. Guardian Elder, what do you think? His question, however, received. Su Qi slightly lifted his head and saw a shadow standing still in place, motionless. Since he couldn't see its face, he could only sense it trembling ever so slightly. Murmuring 2 words, success. After countless years, it has finally succeeded. It looked around. The immortal path steel connected with a multitude of residences in the Star River. As if illuminating the Star River itself, the Star River was subtly recovering some vitality. The reflected light shone in harmony with the enlightenment character on the immortal path steel. He shuddered looking at this scene. The immortal path steel finally has hope of revival. Although I know you're excited, but buddy? Su Qi paused, looking at the immortal path steel in front of him, which was shaking violently, with fragments falling off ceaselessly. I have a feeling. The immortal path steel is about to shatter. As if his words were prophetic. The next moment, the immortal path steel actually began to crack inch by inch, a torrent of brilliance bursting forth. It saw this as well but did not panic. Instead, it placed its hand on Su Qi's shoulder. The immortal path has now found its successor, and all here is no longer sealed. There is hope and liberation at hand. And I am no longer the Tomb Guardian. Su Qi asked. So what now? Will you coexist with this place, or change professions? It was silent for a while, still shocked, but it seemed to realize that the guy before it talked a bit too much. However, that wasn't important. Its tone became solemn. Sir, may I ask for your name? Su Qi. I am the sect hierarch of the Hustlers sect, Su Buxian. Very well. It nodded lightly, pressing its hand on Su Qi's shoulder as everything around them began to crumble. Su Buxian, you are no longer an ordinary person as of this moment. You are the successor of the immortal path. Its soul fire burned rapidly. And I, Luo Shinfu, swear upon the immortal path, from now on, will be your Taoist guardian. Its soul connected with the patterns of the Star River, as if to attest to the vow it had just voiced. The next moment, it opened a portal, taking Su Qi out. Su Qi's figure slowly appeared back in the original world. He finally saw fresh colors again, inhaled fresh air, and squinting his eyes, he looked at the fallen brush beside him, and a ring on his finger. Brother Luo? The ring flickered with a soft light. It spoke, Taoist Su, I am currently but a wisp of soul fire, and can only reside in this form here. Taoist Su? Su Qi mused to himself. Another layer of identity added. By the way, the guardian from just now was. It softly said, we didn't have much time just now, no chance to explain, but from the moment you inherited the immortal path, I will assist you with all my strength, guiding your growth and protection against all who endanger your life. Su Qi paused. The power of the evil god in his spiritual eyes flickered slightly. A restless curse floated along his arm. Chaotic signs crawled in the dark star, and numerous traces of lethal intent locked onto him. He quirkily said, you sure about this? Of course, it is the vow I have made to the immortal path, a mission engraved upon my soul. Luo Shinfu replied gravely. Su Qi showed a pleased smile. That's great, congratulations, and welcome to the Hustler sect. Su Qi stood atop the mountain summit, watching as numerous cultivators roared and slew the collapsing heavenly mountain disciples, cleansing the demons. He did not go down or lift a finger to help. The phantom of Luo Shinfu was lightly touching the patterns beside him. I have hidden this world once more. They have stabilized now. We should avoid exposing this world as much as possible, so that no one will know of the immortal path's inheritance. Su Qi watched Luo Shinfu's actions. Is such caution really necessary? Daozi! Luo Shinfu spoke with utmost seriousness. I must remind you once again, you can't imagine the kind of enemies and beings you will face. Once the news of the immortal path's inheritance is exposed, you will face the most terrifying pursuit. So, no matter what, maintaining your ordinary status, laying low, that is what's most important. Su Qi muttered to himself, I understand the principle. Don't worry. My greatest quality is being low-key, modest, and steady. Luo Shinfu nodded, half believing. Now, it's time to leave, heading for the land of extreme evil. Naturally, Luo Shinfu was aware of the land of extreme evil. He even understood much of the history and external forces that had developed in the present world information. After all, he had encountered countless people who had come to participate in the trials of the immortal path and had learned much information from them. He was very familiar with the land of extreme evil. Speaking of which, if I'm supposed to keep a low profile, why are you still letting me go to the land of extreme evil? Because, according to the trend of the Taoist scripture you previously outlined, your immortal path seems to be an offensive technique, Luo Shinfu explained. Where there is a path, there must be contention. Avoiding a fight out of fear would blunt one's edge. Another point, Luo Shinfu said solemnly. To grow the immortal path, the resources needed are massive, though the land of extreme evil is perilous. But his fingers seem to be calculating divinations. The divination shows there's a tremendous opportunity there, and many descendants of fortune are converging. It seems to be a node of destiny very important. The so-called other descendants of fortune naturally referred to the descendants of powerful clans, divine sons, young masters, and such. So Daozi, this place is crucial. He saw Su Qi's contemplative expression, and he had not spoken, seemingly hesitating. He gently shook his head. Don't worry or be afraid. Although the land of extreme evil is dangerous, as a Taoist guardian, I will protect you and guide you to opportunities. An heir of the immortal path must adapt. Su Qi murmured, I'm quite worried, actually, but since you say so, it shouldn't be a big problem. Also, can I ask how strong you were in the past, Brother Luo? Luo Shinfu, in his white jade Taoist robe, though appearing middle-aged, carried an aura that arose naturally. He softly said, "At my peak, I was a quasi-immortal, although now, due to the great battles of the past and the erosion of time, I have only the spiritual power of the nascent soul stage, but that is enough to provide sanctuary to a Daozi." Su Qi moved his lips. "Brother, you're too confident." But it seemed a bit too hard to say. It really wasn't enough. Quasi-immortal. That is, a demigod. And nascent soul stage, that's only sequence 6. Neither the distant nor the immediate enemies seemed like enough. But Su Qi did not speak out, afraid his brother might run off. "Let's go, leave this place. Now I will do my utmost to cultivate you from an ordinary person into a true bearer of the immortal path, the supreme Taoist." "All right." Su Qi gave a thumbs up. Luo Shinfu returned to the ring to rest. He and Old Huang shared a similar deteriorated soul, and after using the array to arrange the world a bit, eliminating most traces. Now he needed to go into the ring and recover his strength. Su Qi also boarded the flying ship that was hovering in the outer world, the transportation device that the Immortal Master had used to arrive. It too was engraved with the Star Raider pattern. Engines accelerate. Coordinates, adjust them. Su Qi operated the flying ship. He now wanted to return to the superpower world first to see how Bai Yilin and others by Qixing were doing now. Of course, what was more important was to see how Xiao Meng was doing, the next plans and actions. That unlimited energy was very important. After all, the meeting with the Venerable arranged by the Angel Envoy was about to begin. The dark zone was going to burst. He must increase his odds and aces as much as possible before that. After confirming the coordinates, the flying ship sailed into nihility. Although it looked like a flying ship on the outside, in reality, it was all sorts of ceremony arrangements and driving forces. During the voyage of the flying ship, Su Qi also brewed a cup of tea, relaxed and began to review the new treasures he had acquired. First was the breakthrough to 7th rank. The upper limit of spiritual energy naturally surged significantly. His previous small pond now upgraded and expanded. Second, spiritual energy could now recover autonomously. For other 7th rank people, the rate was about 110 points per minute. For Su Qi, it was over 100 points per minute, 10 times that of others. This was related to both the sequence's strength and quantity. Third, spiritual energy could now be projected externally, forming defenses, controlling projections for attacks, and enabling flight, among other things. But at the same time, spiritual energy would manifest differently, as once projected, it could be seen by the naked eye. Besides that, it's the treasures obtained in this world. Su Qi whistled softly. The dark star jade pendant hanging on his chest turned into a dark red flying shuttle in the blink of an eye. As the Immortal Master said, it indeed was a treasure. Name: Rui, Dark Star First Weapon Slot. Type: Weapon. Quality: Immortal. Function: can be manipulated by the player's spiritual power for rapid, star-like control. The higher the spiritual power, the more strength can be developed, producing different effects and forms. Due to Dark Star enhancement, can increase power, with a chance to perform Dark Star Strike. Note: its power often relates to its user, usually imbued with an untamable pride. Unfortunately, it met you. An immortal-level weapon. Quite impressive. Su Qi murmured softly. Moreover, it has taken the first weapon slot of Dark Star. After breaking through the 7th rank, the Dark Star that had grown with him also naturally transformed. Firstly, the quality of items it could devour advanced by a tier. Besides, there appeared a weapon slot in Dark Star. Although Dark Star could previously transform into various types of weapons at will, in reality, it only utilized part of Dark Star's capabilities. Now, Dark Star can assign a primary weapon slot, and as Dark Star grows, this primary weapon will also unlock its limit and continue to evolve. Previously, Su Qi had no suitable choices until this Rui appeared, which actually had suitable weapon traits. And Dark Star needed to devour 10,000 perfect level weapons before it could open a second primary weapon slot. Of course, Su Qi was not in a hurry. He always had a penchant for peace, and Rui seemed sufficient for now. Afterward, there was an even more powerful item. Su Qi slowly looked at the brush in his item slot, inscribed with Taoist scripture. This was not a weapon but a tool. Name: Eternal Pen. Quality: Divine Artifact. Function: any character written with it can cause events to occur. When outlining, it will draw 80% of spiritual energy, and after success, it will cool down for 24 hours. Growth: as the user ascends a sequence, the draw on spiritual energy decreases by 10%, and cooldown time is reduced by 10%. Note: originated from a great saint who wrote Taoist scripture. Only those who master its Taoist scripture can use it. Another divine artifact. Its effect also seems somewhat twisted. Low quality, ordinary, excellent, perfect, immortal, legend. However, divine artifacts are beyond these, a more powerful object that can truly unleash its strength only in the hands of a god. Having the bizarre ability to make whatever is written happen seems quite normal now. Su Qi also had scissors from a god, and even now at the 7th rank, he still hadn't the strength to utilize them. Also, Su Qi was flipping a spirit coin in his hand, but his eyes were slowly closing. His consciousness appeared on a bridge of spiritual power. This place was the sequence world, and beneath his feet, for paths of the sequence extended from his soul fire. They all ended at the cross-section of the 7th rank. By common sense, reaching the 6th sequence and touching the threshold of the extraordinary is needed to bring the spiritual body consciousness into the path of the sequence. Su Qi murmured softly, "But now I can enter it." In other words, had his spiritual power reached the 6th sequence, even touching the threshold of the extraordinary. Regardless, this is good news. Su Qi could more clearly see his own sequence, and how to advance to the next sequence. He had a clearer method. The start of the Ancient God series connected to the heart of his soul. The start of the Spiritual Eyes series connected to his soul's eyes. The Angel series and the Immortal Path, one at the back, the other at the brow. His soul was vividly alive, flickering with 4 different colors of light. And looking around, it was a sight of darkness with nothing else visible. Some say at the end of the sequence, one will see the ultimate. Su Qi looked back at the path he had trodden. Each sequence path's distance became longer, from the 8th to the 7th rank, at least 10,000 meters. He then looked again at the darkness. When will I be able to see the ultimate? Should we? Su Qi stretched out his hand, his fingertip emitting a great amount of starfire. Could we perhaps forge a new path? In the spiritual space, starfire could also appear and remain eternally, something Su Qi had already tested. Perhaps. This was truly his bug-level ability, and after ascension to the 7th rank, starfire could appear instantaneously in excess of 100,000 per breath. But Su Qi simply scattered the starfire, letting it dissipate into the darkness. After all, he could only stand within the path of sequences now, incapable of leaving even by a fraction. After pausing for a while, Su Qi left the area. The path of Immortal Tao has just formed. It's still stabilizing, and its traits have not appeared yet. But it seems like magic formulas can already be used. Su Qi extended his hand and pinched out a few magic formulas he had learned previously from Tang Dashan, instantly succeeding. However, he did not stay there to continue learning magic formulas. As he had a quasi-immortal level existence beside him, it was time to exploit Luo. And others were Taoist guardians, far more innocent than Old Huang. The flying ship was traveling rapidly through nihility, passing through swirling turbulence, about half a day later, approaching the coordinates of the superpower world. Yet the superpower world was not visible. Su Qi's Super Dream Protocol connected with Xiao Meng. Master! Xiao Meng's voice was a bit questioning, with a clarity different from before. You're back. Yes, I went on a trip for a while and it felt quite nice. Su Qi looked towards the distant void. Speaking of which, can you sense from this far now? He was now at least 1 billion kilometers away from the coordinates. Xiao Meng has already upgraded big time. The amount of information has reached 1.5 standard worlds, and after remodeling the starship, the detection distance has also reached 50 billion kilometers. Xiaomeng spoke with a completely different tone from before, less artificial intelligence, more emotion. And also, from the heart of Divine Weapon, I've extracted several blueprints, some of which I've already created samples for you, Master, and some still cannot progress due to incomplete technology. Su Qi patiently listened to Xiaomeng's slightly excited report, although he could instantly check through the Super Dream Protocol. But why not listen, as this was his very important personal assistant of the Hustlers sect hierarch. Also, Master, there is one more thing. Xiaomeng suddenly said, under your arrangement, the starship was hidden in outer space, but before, a batch of mechas came into this world. Their technology has many similarities with the blueprints of the heart of Divine Weapon, and there is also a very powerful entity. To stay hidden, I had to move the starship to the other side of another planet. Su Qi paused. Although they are our own people, good job. If Bai Qixing had come here, it likely meant that Long Sun had brought them back. It seems that everyone was safe and sound at that time. Also, we have to apologize to Bai Qixing. The core of their divine machinery kingdom won't be returned. This core they simply cannot keep on their own. Moreover, we're all loving family members of the Hustlers. There's nothing to return. Su Qi not only intended to take down the core, but also to incorporate them into the Hustlers sect as a new force. They are where I'll go see. Su Qi had already seen the planet of Superpower World. Master, your companions? They have assembled and set off half a day ago, heading to Extreme Evil City. Xiaomeng paused, seemingly checking the audio, because according to the information collected from their conversations, tomorrow is the day the Star Meeting convenes in Extreme Evil City. And the unrest in the Dark Zone is about to be settled entirely, and it seems like major events will follow. Xiaomeng judged from the collected audio. They are all investing everything, preparing to engage the Star Meeting, to fight for the upper hand for entering the core of the Dark Zone. Su Qi slightly paused. The core of the Dark Zone. Can we finally enter? He gazed at the ring between his fingers. Luo, it's up to you if you can rise to the occasion when the time comes. Long Sun and the others were standing inside the Extreme Evil City, observing the many changes occurring throughout the city. More people streamed in, creating a densely packed sea of humanity. From time to time, one could see that beings of the 7th rank made more frequent and denser appearances than before. Due to the full-scale rebellion in the Dark Zone, all who had entered before are either trapped to death inside or have been driven out. And at the moment when the Star Meeting is about to convene, it seems that the turmoil within the Dark Zone is also on the verge of subsiding. The quiet before the stormy outbreak is about to come. Bai Yilan spoke softly. Everyone is exerting all their strength in preparation. He looked towards the city center, where a large number of buildings had been occupied by various powers, and various holographic images, rune patterns, and totems were erected. To pioneer the Dark Zone at the earliest opportunity and vie for control of the core regions. Jiang Ji sighed. All the factions are gathering troops and recruiting horses. What should we do? He hesitated. Should we join a powerful faction or? Long Sun had been mostly silent, burdened with heavy thoughts. Upon hearing Jiang Ji's words, he simply shook his head and said, most powerful factions merely treat people as tools, and once faced with various crises, they will only abandon you or use you as cannon fodder. And don't you have your own faction? Long Sun paused. The Hustlers sect. Bai Yilan and Jiang Ji fell silent. How could the Hustlers sect, with only a few members, count as a power? Moreover, now the sect hierarch was nowhere to be seen. In any case, let's first find some people to accompany us. This opening act of the Dark Zone will reveal both rebellion and danger, and a group is always more suitable than an individual. Long Sun spoke with gravity. After all, you've been in there before and have experienced it. Bai Yilan nodded. Indeed, the worlds experienced within the Dark Zone are unlike those in Paradise that would automatically arrange balanced instance worlds. Instead, they are random world fragments where an individual's strength is incredibly minuscule. Progress could only be made with countless people working together. Acting alone was too risky. However, They were unable to contact Brother Su at the moment and could only follow Long Sun's experience to find a faction's pioneering team to blend into. Bai Yilin wasn't too worried about Su Qi. After all, he was used to it, and even if he really encountered danger, there was still paradise. And in the extreme evil event, the penalty for death was not severe, and there was also the opportunity to start over again. At that moment, beep, 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 their communicators started emanating sounds. Everyone's communicator was different from before, whether in material, chip, or other aspects, all having immense technological sophistication. Lord Bai Qixing, Bai Yilin answered the communicator. Is there something going on right now? This device was precisely the technology created by the mechanical army, and after coming out from the Dark Zone, because the rebellion drew the attention of many, they took Bai Qixing and the others back to the superpower world. However, Duan and the rest were inexplicably still not back, but luckily, those left in the superpower world fully trusted them. After all, that guy, the sect hierarch of the hustlers, saved them. Later, the mechanical army quickly regrouped, healed their injuries, and began to develop new technologies. They also upgraded a lot of high-tech equipment for them. As for why they did this, Bai Qixing didn't explain, just gave them a deep look, and mentioned that it was requested by their sect hierarch, and there was still much to do. Bai Yilin didn't know what Su Qi and Bai Qixing had communicated previously, but with the support of Elder Bai Qixing and a vast number of mechanical army behind them, they felt greatly confident. However, they didn't act together with them. Firstly, because they, being mechanical life forms, were conspicuous and needed to hide themselves. Secondly, the mechanical army seemed to be reaching out to their kingdom, and Bai Qixing too needed to heal his own injuries. The voice that came through wasn't that of Bai Qixing. The Lord is undergoing self-repair. I am Shandian. Where are you? Jiang Ji paused. We are on the 414th street of the extreme evil city, about to head to the center to see if there's any pioneering team we can join. Okay, brothers, wait for me there. I'll be right over. Shandian's voice carried a whistling undertone, seemingly moving rapidly. Within the mechanical army, Shandian had been the earliest to make contact with Su Qi, and had witnessed with its own eyes how Su Qi had rescued them from dire straits. Plus, with the instructions of Lord Bai Qixing, Shandian had friendly interactions with the members of the Hustler sect and was well acquainted in the superpower world. Shandian is coming over? Jiang Ji stuck his head out. Then we won't fear being mistaken as mechanical anomalies. After all, although many people here look strange, mechanical life forms are as rare as those energy life forms. Long Sun paused. It seems to be arriving. That fast. Worthy of the name Shandian. Bai Yilin also looked towards the distant street corner, where a mechanical dog was treading on rapid lightning, swiftly descending from the sky. Because the extreme evil city was very large, flying was generally not prohibited except in the central area, where galaxy-level powers congregate. No flying or use of spiritual energy was allowed. Of course, it wasn't just about whether you could or couldn't fly. There was something there capable of suppressing everyone's power, preventing the ordinary use of spiritual energy. I'm here. Shandian landed beside them, and it wasn't in the previous mecha form, but rather shaped like a small mechanical dog. Tisk. Jiang Ji clicked his tongue and looked around. Aren't you afraid of attracting attention? No way. Shandian's slightly blue eyes, however, sparkled with a confident glimmer as he laughingly said, I've already probed it. Mechanical life may be rare, but intelligent mechanical products are well known. Haven't you noticed that the people around us aren't too surprised when they look at us? Instead, there's a hint of envy. Bai Yilin fell into deep thought. Indeed, he had been observing those around him since Shandian had appeared and their expressions had changed. After a moment of surprise, their gazes became one of envy. Why would they be envious? Bai Yilin didn't understand. If it were Su Bushin here, he'd stroll by and casually say it's because we are from the Hustler sect, Jiang Ji commented. Long Sun glanced at Jiang Ji, who had responded, You sure seem to be concerned about your sect hierarch. Is this concern? It's a silent complaint. Jiang Ji sighed. Once you're in deep with the hustlers, it's like the sea, as if you've signed a contract of servitude. For this reason, I've even passed on messages to my brothers in the Meteor Alliance before, to pull them into the sect. I've made my efforts. The main reason was that even though the hustler sect didn't have many members, the atmosphere was good, and he could see that Su Buxian might seem unreliable but actually had profound energy. Moreover, his brothers from the Meteor Alliance could take this opportunity to establish a name for themselves, rather than forming a nondescript alliance that remains an unranked external organization in paradise. After all, Jiang Ji sighed inwardly. His brothers were talented, but everyone had their own ideas. Without a unified program, their freedom actually made it difficult for these geniuses to behave like a cohesive unit. Therefore, he was working so hard to bring them into the hustlers. Firstly, he had already been tricked into it, so why not strive together with his brothers for greater unity. Secondly, in regards to Su Buxian, while Jiang Ji often teased him, he was always observing, and that guy seems capricious, playing cards and throwing words out of turn. Yet, at the moment of crisis, capable of pulling off some jaw-dropping stunts. But, since their first encounter, both he and Bai Yilan had progressed far beyond the others, and the resources they had obtained were also more diverse. So, what exactly is the reason then? Bai Yilan, still not understanding, asked again. Shandian paused for a moment. Because mechanical products are high-end luxury goods, possessing various fully intelligent mechanical products is even more priceless. The only presence selling these products is a super commerce named Everyday Commerce. It is said to originate from Night City, with the backing of the Spirit King. Mention of the Spirit King, their expressions all slightly changed. As one of the currently strongest entities among the open superpower factions, the Spirit King wielded the most considerable influence. And, according to rumors, the Spirit Kings had recently become quiet over the last half-year, as if they were preparing for something. Shandian, however, wasn't much affected, having always been in that mechanical kingdom, aware of the present world but not directly involved. This everyday commerce. What about it? Bai Yilan asked, brooding. How should I put it? Shandian paused. They seem to come from a place called Night City, and their technology appears to have some resemblance to ours from the mechanical kingdom. It's highly likely that they obtained and cracked several of our leaked blueprints. However, our blueprints have high-level encryption. They haven't grasped the essence. What is quite backward for us, to these beings of the present world, is high-end. They've also incorporated various ingenious ideas to become a super commerce. I see. Bai Yilan suddenly paused, sensing something keenly. Shandian, by telling us all this, do you already have a strategy in mind? Hee, of course. Otherwise, why would I come here? Shandian laughed lightly, his view filled with holographic data analysis. Everyday Commerce is also organizing a pioneering team, and based on my analysis, their friendliness is among the highest in many factions. We can choose to join them. Bai Yilan's eyes brightened slightly. Such a super commerce was something they originally had no intentions of approaching, as its backing, the Spirit King, represented an intimidating force. But now, they had an opportunity. Key to this was their professional alignment. After all, Shandian and its kind had more advanced technology, offering more for trade. Of course, this must be approached with caution, for if Shandian's nature as a mechanical life were to be exposed, that would indeed be quite the risk. Long Sun also offered his opinion. This is an opportunity, but being cautious can never be wrong. Most powers are coveting others' positions and are driven by greed for benefits. All right, it seems we are all in agreement. Let's go and make contact with Everyday Commerce to see if we can obtain the qualifications to join. Bai Yilan mused. Brother Jiang, what about you? Why haven't you said anything? Long Sun looked toward Jiang Ji, who was deep in thought. I was contemplating why, despite being called Night City, they would add the prefix ever to it. Everyday Commerce. It feels somewhat off. Jiang Ji paused. Like our leisurely people sect, it also begins with the word ever. Should we go and acknowledge some relatives? The others looked at him as if he were an idiot. Hey, can't I make a joke to lighten the mood? Jiang Ji sighed helplessly. Forget it. I better not mention the leisurely people sect anymore. Afraid it would embarrass us. Let's go. They headed towards the central district. They soon saw a large number of buildings on the outskirts, already occupied by various forces that began recruiting people, with countless adventurers queuing outside. Even though it's just the outer area, those who can set up here are at least starting at the constant star level. Let's keep moving inward. The area had 10 circular layers of streets, each layer moving closer to the center. The various forces seen here possessed even greater strength. As they reached the central district, they encountered the entrance to the star meeting area, protected by an energy shield. To enter, they first needed to prove their strength. Only those at the 7th rank were worthy. Secondly, each person had to pay a fee of 50,000 spirit coins. It really is a gathering place of top-tier powers. Even just to enter, it costs so damn much. Let's go, and be careful with our words and actions, Long Soon said with a serious tone. After paying their spirit coins, they entered. Upon entering, they could see the majestic scene inside. Numerous powers were arrayed on platforms decorated for ceremonies, with various gigantic apparitions descending from all around. Each power emanated an intimidating and potent aura, and under each top power, there was a separate space and ripples, with lines of people stretching out like a dragon. Damn, there are so many people, Jiangji exclaimed, his eyes wide. Long Sun calmly said, after all, following the teams of these powers means having a stronger pioneering force, which also means more opportunities. With more than half a year of gold farming on the outskirts, countless people realized the immense value of this place, not to mention the opportunity to delve even deeper. Everyone sought a chance to turn their destiny on its head. Over there is Everyday Commerce's territory. They looked up and quickly saw the immense holograph of Everyday Commerce on a piece of floating land, with naturally a long queue of people. We have to stand in such a long line, Jiangji said, somewhat stunned. Let's queue up. Despite the crowd, the efficiency is high, Bai Yilan said as he walked forward. Shandian, now considerably smaller, perched on Bai Yilan's shoulder. Although it could produce designs of some value which should exempt it from queuing to be on the safe side, it was better to take things one step at a time. Jiang Ji sighed. We could also not queue, Long Sun pointed out, indicating a few groups of people, each escorting a distinguished and spirited young individual who went straight into the islands trembling with astonishing energy fluctuations. Those people are either powerful descendants or young masters and divine sons. Naturally, many groups would roll out the red carpet for them. He patted Jiang Ji's shoulder in consolation and smiled. So, if the name of the leisurely people sect were big enough, it might be helpful. No need. Jiang Ji stood tall. I love queuing. Using that when nobody knows it would be social suicide. Meanwhile, in another location, Su Qi had also arrived at the land of extreme evil but had yet to enter the city. However, he had people to welcome him, several individuals dressed in stealthy garb, exuding a cold presence and bearing the totem, a symbol of a powerful and super top-tier organization. On their clothing, were now kneeling on one knee before him. Beside them stood a man with a somewhat fawning attitude. Venerable One, welcome,